Me, yes. Well, good evening, everyone. I am Madeline Agrimonti, Vice Mayor, and I'd like to welcome you all. It's wonderful to see faces, no mask. We got past it, right? Thank you so much for being here. So let me start the meeting. So, I'd like to call the meeting to order and we're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance in a moment. And I'd also like to say, call the meeting to order, explain for public comment, we will take a in-person public comment. You're so lucky tonight. First, and then Zoom public comment. I imagine there are Zoom people here on Zoom. And is there anyone here who would like to lead the salute to the flag? Thank you, Ken. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen.
Councilmember Ding,
Present.
Councilmember Harrington,
Present.
Councilmember Barnett,
Here.
Vice Mayor Agrimonti.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Public comment. So we are going to have, as I said, public comment for virtual meetings, and we were not in a we weren't in a closed session, so there's nothing to report out for. And could I ask for someone to approve the agenda, please?
So moved.
I second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember
Roll
Ding,
call.
Yes.
Councilmember Harrington,
Yes.
Councilmember Barnett,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Agrimonti.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
Oops. At this time, members of the public may comment on any item not appearing on the agenda. It is recommended that you keep your comments to 3 minutes or less under state law unless otherwise permitted under the Ralph M. Brown Act. The merits of the matters presented under this item cannot be discussed or acted upon by the City Council at this time. For items appearing on the agenda, the public will be invited to make comments on the item at that time when it comes up before the council for consideration. Upon being acknowledged by the mayor, begin by stating your name, and I believe, it also includes your address?
Normally, yeah.
Because I haven't been hearing that lately from Zoom people.
We had actually taken it off at one point of the agenda, but it's up to you guys if you want to have it on or
Okay,
not.
thank you. So at this time, are there any public comments? Something that is not on the agenda. If you'd like to stand, come to the podium, introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Sinjin Bain. I live on Oak Lane. I'm concerned about the lack of commitment to safety regarding the Caltrans Broadway repaving project currently in process. Despite several discussions during prior council meetings, many comments from residents voicing concern about safety for families, seniors, and disabled, there's no action by council to this point, even though you all have acknowledged there are safety issues. I'd like to read a small segment from the staff report from the previous council meeting. Based on input received from City Council at this meeting, meaning the May 3rd meeting, staff has been working with the leadership of the Sonoma County Transportation Authority on the strategy for engagement with Caltrans leadership and the state representatives on potential Broadway safety improvements. Much research has been done across the nation regarding how and whether a more multimodal lane configuration can reduce speeds, reducing speeds being an important part of increased safety. Generally, where drivers perceive a more limited roadway versus an open runway of lanes, drivers will go more slowly. It has advantages over additional signage, as that signage can blend into a driver's vision over time. The previous 2 times this issue was discussed at council meetings, there was clear recognition by council members and staff that Broadway is an unsafe environment for pedestrians and bicycles. At the most recent meeting on June 7th, council was unable to focus and act on this issue, even with acknowledged timeline pressures. Staff provided clear data that 3-lane approaches with related increased signage would slow traffic and increase safety. The traffic engineer identified the simple next step of a pro forma study Caltrans would require for possibly changing to a 3-lane striping plan to reduce speed and increase safety. Council seemed a little unclear as to making the next logical step of doing the pro forma study, even with no dollar impact, actual commitment, or change to 3-lane striping. There are 0 reasons for a 5-lane road, much less something dumping into the square. Additionally, during the previous council session, there were comments that were concerning. There was concern about the lack of notice to a meeting, potential costs, didn't feel prepared to make a statement. Regarding the notice, the same notice was given as to all council matters. It's not really an issue. The staff provided a very detailed analysis prior to the meeting with clear guidance for increased safety, and the appropriate support staff at the meeting was there. Detailed diagrams were made a part, not just narrative, and as previously mentioned, cost was removed as an issue for the study. Finally, the previous survey from over a year ago was brought up saying that people seem to favor the 5-lane striping. The fact that an inaccurate, unscientific survey was done over a year ago that indicated resident preference is not really relevant for what is fundamentally a safety issue. Council 100% owns safety, public safety. It's not something that's left to an old unscientific survey. In summary, Council was provided clear information by staff that to maximize safety on Broadway, it should be restriped in a 3-lane configuration, along with the next step, which is just to be in position to make this decision down the road, which is a pro forma study. But at this point, Council has not taken this step. I'd ask Council stay focused on what matters, public safety. To do this, I request that Council direct staff to execute the public study discussed at the prior Council meeting. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for getting up and speaking. Have anyone else who would like to speak? Thank you. Just want to remind you, it's 3 minutes for your comment.
Good evening, everyone. First, I want to thank you for your service, Mr. Kiff and Ms. Ferguson. And I'm going to pile on to that conversation with a slightly different perspective. My name is Donna Dombuck. I live on Broadway. And I'd listened with a great interest last week at the council meeting. And I emailed you, each of you, and I'm reiterating my email tonight. I cannot tell you how many times I've had near misses myself crossing Broadway. And terrifying experiences, so much so that I do not feel safe crossing Broadway unless I cross at MacArthur, where there's a way to stop traffic, or at Napa, where there's a way to stop traffic. The yellow flashing lights fixed to the roadway are not visible during daylight hours, even for the most responsible and careful drivers, let alone reckless drivers who speed down the roadway, which happens with a great frequency. I do understand that the council will be discussing the budget tonight with regard to a proposal that was brought forward for funding. And they will follow up on this restriping at an August timeframe. But I would just like to offer a perspective around uncoupling some of the conversation that happened last week. So I agree with Councilwoman Agrimonti that public safety is the major concern, and I agree with your comments. And I think that should be the near-term focus of this committee. We've seen a dramatic increase in pedestrian traffic in the last few years. As you know, there was a very substantial injury that happened in April. I was there when that happened. It was very upsetting to me. And I know that there are more businesses that are moving down Broadway. There's Hot Monk, there's Pete's, there's MacArthur Place, Layla, Wit and Wisdom. There are many younger families moving into the community. And we heard from someone at the last meeting that brought her child in her stroller up to this podium. So again, I'll reiterate, I would ask the council to uncouple the conversation around enhanced pedestrian safety, option B, from restriping, option A. I honestly believe that making cars stop is the only way we're really going to enhance safety. And this is also a prime example at Studley and Fifth Street, which I know is on a future agenda. I've walked and driven my car down there, and going down to a single lane has not made it safer for people trying to cross traffic. What will help people is the same thing, is stopping the cars. So I would ask that the restriping debate, I think it is a moot point. I think there's a lot of literature and evidence out that's been years in the making that talks about that. There's a plan in place with Caltrans. I don't think it's the time for us to revisit that. If there's a future for putting in pedestrian or visioning Broadway, I would ask that we put that into a future topic and actually have the discipline to create the funding for that. So I appreciate your time and for hearing me out. Thank you.
Hi.
Sorry. Remind the speakers when the red light is flashing, that means your time is up. Thank you. Thanks for coming again.
It's on. It looks like it's on because it's red. Thanks. Hi, I'm Jean Louise Camus again. Jean Louise Camus is my daughter Charlotte. My son was going to come, which is the double, but this doesn't fit down most of the sidewalks in the city, so it's good for on the roads. So I'm on the roads a lot with this one. And last time I was here, I asked you guys to do something. Asking you guys again. I think last week you had the chance to do something, and I would like you guys to put it on the agenda today. Make a nice little vote. I think we need to refer back to Caltrans' best practices here, Caltrans' own recommendations, and get this done this year, please. The study was done. It was Caltrans' best practices. I don't know how many times to say that. So, also, side note on the budget, you guys should get paid more so we can encourage more people to work for you guys, work with you guys. Sorry to see you leave. That's all my time.
Thank you very much. Do we have anyone else who would like to speak?
Good evening. My name is Claire Silvat, and I live on Oak Lane. I am disabled. Thank you. My name is Claire Solat. I live on Oak Lane. I apologize. I am disabled. In October of 2019, I became deaf in my left ear. In addition to not being able to hear on my left side, I have extreme tinnitus and am often unable to balance well enough to drive a car. As a result, walking is my primary mode to commute. I've lived in Sonoma almost 10 years, and I have to cross Broadway to go to the post office, to the pharmacy, to doctor's appointments, to the supermarket, and to the bank. Many of our neighbors and friends also have to cross Broadway with young children, people who are seniors, teens who are getting that first right to be able to go to the plaza or to school by themselves, and people who simply embrace the idea that it's better for the environment to walk or to bike rather than to use a car. As several of you noted at the last council meeting, it is often terrifying to cross Broadway. Imagine trying to cross it if you're Jean Louise with young children. Imagine trying to cross it if you're myself and you can't hear cars that are approaching from the left side. In April, after the serious accident that occurred at the Hot Monk, I reached out to all of you, and I asked that immediately there be interim measures, whether it be signs that identified how fast people were going, or remedying the broken signs we have that are supposed to identify how people are driving. Nothing happened. I was unable to come to the last meeting because of my disability. When the winds are raging as they were that night, and again today, as I said, I can't drive, I can barely walk. I was extremely dismayed and concerned by Council's decision to push off this issue to the end of the summer. The failure to focus on the excellent work that was done by your staff and the elongated discussions of things, as other people have noted, while important, are not in the immediate time frame that we're dealing with right now. Earlier today, I dropped off a traffic hazard form signed by several of our neighbors as well as other individuals that casually were walking down the block that identified how important this issue is to us. At the bottom of this form is a statement. Would the neighborhood be willing to contribute to the cost of providing traffic calming measures? So not only is it appropriate to look for private-public partnerships for this work, it's actually encouraged by the City of Sonoma. Tonight, I'm going to renew my request that this issue be expedited and that it not wait until August. As we have seen in the excellent traffic studies that have been submitted by the city manager and by Public Works, it has been proven over and over again that restriping to fewer lanes will in fact slow speeds down and make Broadway safer for both pedestrians as well as cars and bicyclists. Waiting until August may in fact make this a moot issue because there may not be time for Caltrans to do its review. There are no financial impediments to conducting the preliminary work that needs to be done, as members of the community have volunteered to foot the bill for this cost. As said earlier, public safety is not something that should be decided by a survey or by a popularity vote. It is the most important issue that this council is here to attend to.
You have to stop. There are other people that would like to speak. I think what you have to say is very important, but I need to stop you.
Absolutely, and I'm happy to wrap up. So again, I encourage you all, whether you require a special meeting or you can do it by unanimous consent in a written vote, to address this issue now. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Do I have any other people here for public comment? Thank you so much.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. Mark Bodenhammer here on behalf of the Sonoma Valley Chamber of Commerce. I am just wanting to recognize the work of our interim city manager, Dave Kiff. I'm not sure if this is his last meeting, but this is probably my last time meeting with Dave. I just want to share my experience. He really stepped in a very difficult time. That's a hard role, serving as an interim city manager, because you're only here for a short amount of time. And I think it would be kind of natural to only focus on things that were happening right now with immediate benefit that he's going to see the payoff for. But he really jumped in and is not just working on today, but making sure that we're moving towards the future. So just want to congratulate you on really just fabulous time working here, and really have appreciated the steadying force that you brought to the city in this time. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Seeing none, I'm moving on to presentations.
My little announcement. Do you mind?
Mayor,
How about, oh, sorry.
do you want to make sure that there's no one online?
Oh, yes, that's right.
Is there anyone?
Oh,
No
thank
one's
you.
raising their hand.
I just, one last thing, I'd like to go on to number 2, with meeting dedications. I don't know, does anyone have any meeting dedications from the city council? No? All right, and before we move on to presentations, I need to ask Mr. Kiff. There were a couple of comments. One was, I guess, the end of summer. The project's going to be delayed until the end of summer. if you might comment on that. And then there's another question that someone asked.
So thank you, Madam Mayor and council members. I know later in the evening you talk about your third quarter planning, and we do have the Broadway item being brought back at your first meeting in August versus the second meeting. So that's Monday, August 2nd. I know that Director Ferguson is working already to implement the study required by Caltrans, so there hasn't been a delay on that. That's what I know about that issue.
Thank you. And the other thing I think the woman with the beautiful baby asked if we could just put it on the agenda right now and vote for it. Would you explain that and it happens in the movies, but it can't happen here?
Correct.
I
The
understand.
Brown Act would direct that you can't place things on the agenda the night of the meeting unless there's an emergency. You have to make a finding associated with emergency.
Thank you. I just wanted to explain that to everybody. And before we start into presentation.
May I ask a brief question?
Sure, absolutely.
So the Caltrans study is in the process.
Let me make sure Director Ferguson knows more about it than I do.
Yeah, Vice Mayor Agrimonti, council members, the traffic engineering consultant that attended the last council meeting via Zoom is proceeding with the synchro analysis that Caltrans required that would show traffic impacts with Broadway at 3 lanes. So that part is proceeding.
Great. And then the council asked staff to do public outreach before the August meeting so the community will know that restriping Broadway is back on the table. Will that be?
That's right.
Is that still the plan?
That's right. And Sarah Tracy is not here this week, but she has that on her list to start as soon as she gets back next week to roll out some additional public awareness of this discussion.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Kiff. And I'm now on to presentations. And before we go to 3.1, Councilmember Amy Harrington would like to share something.
And so this falls under council member comments, if I can move it ahead in the agenda. So maybe people have seen that I have resigned my position as of July 1st, and I just wanted to say how much I have loved being on the city council for the last 5 years and how amazing the city council members I have worked with and the city staff have been. And I just, a lot of things that get done do not get talked about. So I thought I would just mention a brief thing about my colleagues here today. Jack Ding stepped up in the middle of a pandemic when no one was willing to run for elected office and put his name on the ballot, not knowing what would happen. And he is here today. And he also ran in the prior election. So he went door to door and did everything it took to get on this dais. And I am so proud to be here with you. Madeline Agrimonti is a lifetime dedicated public servant who has served on so many boards. And she got us a free bus in the town of Sonoma and also free shuttles for homeless people from where they get food in Sonoma to Los Guilicos, and also accomplished bringing recycling to our town. Kelso Barnett knows more about historic preservation than anyone I have ever met and has taught me so much about land use policy and historic preservation and the history of Sonoma. And that doesn't even include the wonderful colleagues who aren't on the council anymore. So I just wanted to say, raising the minimum wage, establishing an affordable housing trust fund, using hotel tax, those were ideas I brought forward and were supported by my colleagues, and we made those into a reality. And those are things that I think will impact the hardest working people in our town for decades to come. And I'm so proud of everything we've done. And I am excited / horrified that we have to go through the budget tonight because it's going to be a long process, but I'm looking forward to this last bit of good work. Thank you.
And just to ask you, I believe you said July 1st.
July 1, yeah.
Thank you. So let me see. I think we're moving on to 3.1. Presentation regarding July 4th fireworks show from Fire Chief Steve Akre and SVFA representative.
Mayor, council members, staff, and community. Thank you for having me. Steve Akre, I serve as your fire chief. and I'm also a member of the Sonoma Volunteer Firefighters Association. Tonight I'm here to provide the community and council with an update on our planned fireworks show. This is a long-standing show that we know is nearly 50 years old, and was something that former Fire Chief Al Mazza and a group of dedicated volunteers brought to the community after a number of very significant fires that were caused by, at the time, so-called safe and sane fireworks. And they felt that having a fireworks show that was put on by professionals in the safest manner possible was better for the community. It was a way for the community to gather and see a very wonderful show, but it was safer for the community. It was safest for the community, and that was the biggest priority. So that priority continues for us today as the Sonoma Volunteer Firefighters Association, as we look to put on our annual show. Fire safety and the safety of the community is our utmost priority. And we will not go forward with a show if it is deemed to be unsafe. Many times in the past we have delayed the firing of the fireworks show due to weather conditions, and we will not hesitate to do that again, as in every year. Tonight I'm joined by Battalion Chief Bob Norbaum, has about 40 years of service here in the Valley, and has led our fireworks and 4th of July celebration for the last few years. He was instrumental in the Volunteer Firefighters Association taking over the whole 4th of July event when the community center could no longer do that. We're also joined by Captain Joe Neely. He's a volunteer with us, has been for over 20 years serving our community as a volunteer. Joe is one of our 3 pyrotechnic experts who designs the show and ensures that the show is put on safely and without hitches. So they're here in case there's any technical questions that anyone might have. So you know, we've certainly heard and are aware of some of the concerns that that a few people within the community have brought forward regarding this year's show. We have heard concerns about the drought and fire danger, and certainly we are in a drought, and a very significant one. We have, as an organization, we have taken water conservation measures that unfortunately we're familiar with. You know, we went through a prolonged period of drought from 2011 to 2019, so we're used to conserving water. We've implemented those measures, and we put on fireworks shows each of those years, and we did it safely, and we did not have any incidents with those shows during droughts. This year, we understand it is an early start to the fire season in conjunction with the drought. We're monitoring the weather very, very closely, both long range as well as what we do leading up to the show and the day of the show. We have our own fire marshal, we have the state fire marshal, state parks and CAL FIRE, as well as our 3 trained pyrotechnic experts, that any one of them can stop the show like that if the weather is not deemed to be safe for us to put on the show for the community. You know, we found again that through very recently, last year, we were unable to put on the fireworks show for the community due to COVID. And we found very immediately that there were a number of increased fire activity and fireworks activity throughout the community because there wasn't the community show that we were able to put on. So, and we found that in other communities as well that do not put on a community show. Their use of illegal fireworks is much greater than ours. Next, a little bit more on the drought, briefly. I know we got a full agenda tonight, so I'll try to keep this brief. I'm sorry. So for the first time this year, we're actually going to use reclaimed water from the Sonoma County Sanitation District. So we normally use about 15 to 20,000 gallons of water to wet down thoroughly the fields in Vallejo's home and the state parks. And for the first time this year, we're going to use reclaimed water that would otherwise just be discharged into the bay. So we're not going to use that valuable resource that when we're asking everybody else in the community to conserve, we're not going to use that water. we're using water that would otherwise be discharged. We also have a longer range weather forecast already for the 4th of July, looking like it's going to be partly cloudy and low temperatures in the low 80s. So all of that bodes well for right now. We also are very aware of some other concerns within the community. We know that there's people that are sensitive to loud noises. We know that there are people that, both as a community and as individuals, who have impacts from what we went through as a community in 2017. And then we were reminded again last year with the glass fire that came pretty close to our community as well. As an organization, we're very, very sensitive to this, and we acknowledge it. During 17, we had members of our organization lose homes and have to be evacuated for long periods of times. And so we felt that personally as well. And so we're trying to do our best to address those concerns by giving out as much information as we can to the community about having the fireworks program and allowing community members to take any measures that they feel they may need in order to address some of those sensitivities. And the last thing is very related to that, but we know that pets are a very important part of people's lives and parts of their families, and we've heard some concerns about pets with the 4th of July, with the fireworks, and how that can have impacts on them. And again, we're sensitive to that and try to get the information out and just encourage people that if they have pets that are sensitive, to work with your veterinarian ahead of time and come up with a plan in a way that you might be able to address that and make sure your pet's comfortable and you're comfortable as well. Lastly, we will continue to monitor the situation, and again, the community safety is our utmost priority, and if it is deemed that the weather is not conducive to putting on the show, we will definitely make that adjustment. So happy to answer any questions.
Do you have anyone from the council have any questions?
I have a question. Obviously, we didn't have the show last year due to the pandemic. Since the show started, excluding last year, has it ever been canceled due to fire season or drought?
It has never been canceled. It has been delayed a number of times because when we put up those first couple of fireworks, it's a little bit of an attention getter that let people know that, hey, the show's about to start. But it also serves a very, very important function. While we're constantly monitoring the weather, those first couple of shells allow us to see what the winds a little bit higher off of the ground are doing, and so we can see firsthand what those impacts are. While we monitor the weather report, of course, for winds aloft, that actually gets us eyes on something that lets us see what that is.
And so if something, is cause for concern, the show can be immediately canceled?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And we'll work with the company that provides us with the fireworks to work with our association and see if there's a possibility for it just being rescheduled on another day, or if it just needs to be canceled for the year.
Anyone else have it?
Thank you. Just some technical details. How high up in the air are the shells when they explode?
May I turn it over to our expert?
So, introduce myself again, Joe Neely with the fire department. The rule of thumb for aerial displays is based on the diameter of the shell. We shoot shells ranging from 1 inch to 8 inches in diameter, and the altitude that they go up is 100 feet per inch. So the maximum is 800 feet.
Oh, wow. Okay. So what is the range then? Sorry. The range of
100
altitudes.
to 800 feet.
So they're between 100 and 800 feet in the air.
Right. The majority of our shells are 6 inch and lower.
I mean, you're doing some math. I have to just ask for like the simple. So then, in terms of evaluating if something is a fire risk, could you briefly say, when would it present a fire risk? What are the facts? Like if it's windy, then it will blow. How do you determine whether or not it's risky?
Yeah, wind is the major factor there. We have a cleared area around where we shoot off the fireworks, And that is designed to capture all the fallout from the fireworks. And that area is wetted down, like the chief said, and we also have firefighters stationed in that field. So that is the fallout zone that all the fireworks are supposed to fall into.
Okay, so if it's still and it looks like they're gonna fall into the zone, then you're fine. But if it was windy and it looked like it was gonna go somewhere else, then you would have to cancel it or consider canceling it.
Right.
Okay, those are my questions.
My question is regarding water. So how much water,
Thank you, Joe.
how much water, yeah, you mentioned in the 20,000 gallon or,
Roughly 20,000.
Roughly.
Roughly
Okay.
20,000 gallons. We'll use as much water as it takes to make sure that the fields are saturated, so they're wet enough that if a shell were to land outside of that initial launch zone, that it wouldn't catch the grass on fire.
that is the same day or one day before or
Same day.
same day?
Yep.
Okay, that is for sure from our sanitation water treatment.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. So Chief, my issue, of course, I asked from the beginning if you could do what you're doing now, if you could share some of those facts with people. People are worried, and you said a few. I know I answered between 30 and 40 emails, so I'm sure, and I didn't get them all. I'm sure that's not just to me. But my concern is that I reached out to you and I got nothing. I was not contacted. So I started asking why, and I realized you don't work for us. You contract for your services. We contract for your services. So I didn't feel that there was a compassion for the people that I represent here in Sonoma. These are residents. There's no one that can question your ability. I know that you go beyond. I don't have the kind of strength or courage you all do. But here is what I wanted. I wanted some type of a social media that somebody would explain those same things to people so they wouldn't be so scared. You would have said on that day, and you did offer, I think in the manifesto that was put into the letters to the editor, there were a lot of details, and there was no social media that shared a lot of the things that you've discussed. I think those are really important, especially when people are scared. I am freaked out by the smell of smoke. Wind is making me nuts because I always think something's going to happen. So that's what's going on. We're not we don't have your expertise, so we're out here just, hoping to God nothing happens. The other thing I realize is that we are only one of two cities. I don't know, I think Petaluma may have a show as well. I don't even know what other cities might be doing this. I know some have canceled, a few have canceled. So what happens when we're the only show in the county? Even though you're not going to allow people on the field, they're coming here. They're gonna park in the streets. They're gonna do whatever, they're gonna be here to see that. And because it's at such a height, people are gonna be parking on our streets. They have every right to do that. So what does that mean? If we're going to have a lot of people here, we need security for those people. If there is something that happens on July 4th somewhere else, a big fire, that security's gone because they're going to an emergency. So those are the things that really I wanted someone to speak to. I think there was one line that said in what was the letter to the editor that if we find that the weather is not permitting, we will not do it. That was the one thing that I felt for me was really important. I don't know who read through that. I joked with Mr. Kiff. I said, I don't read anything over 3 paragraphs, which is certainly not the truth. But I just want you to understand that I think social media is so important, even for someone my age. I want somebody to allay my fears. And maybe another situation you will do a better job of doing that. And it's not just at you, I got crickets from everyone. So, and people that I have volunteered with. So I just wanted to share that with you. And, I was disappointed. Nobody got back to me until recently. So thanks. Thank you for your presentation.
May I have a chance to respond?
Yep, sure.
So as I said to you in an email and tried to reach out personally, I apologize to you for not meeting your expectation in terms of personally responding to you. I know there was a number of email communications where there were back and forths from members of our team and others trying to provide some of the information that was requested. I know for our social media, you know, we don't have the luxury to have a full-time social media person, but what we do have is we did put information out on our volunteer association's website and have tried to, we had 2 different letters that went out to the community via social media and the newspaper. So, you know, we're always interested in trying to do the best we can for the community and keep them informed. And we'll certainly go back and take a look and see how we may better coordinate that dissemination of information. And the last thing I'll say that I want to say is that you know, we are not just a contractor with the city, and that doesn't feel good to me. That is not how the Sonoma Valley Fire and Rescue was formed. We were a partnership, and we started as a JPA over 20 years ago. I serve this city just as proudly as I serve the unincorporated areas of this community. And
Well, I shared with everyone that
we have also, and then one last thing, I apologize for, in response to the inquiries that we've had as an organization, we have had a captain reach out to every single person that has called or emailed our organization with any sort of concerns about the 4th of July and fireworks. So I feel like we have done, you know, maybe not a perfect job, but we have been responsive as best that we can.
Well, I'm pleased, I'm glad that you're here. And as I said, you know, I've done things with your department, and I felt really welcome. And but it really was disrespectful not to even, you did answer me, you know, maybe because of the chain of command, and you did reach out to me. We sort of did a tag thing today. And I just want to say thank you for doing what you're doing, and maybe you should consider finding out more about how to work with social media, because everybody said, well, you must be on Nextdoor. I'm not on Nextdoor. These are actual people who have emailed me, who were scared, you know, so thank you very much for coming.
Hey,
Matt, I have a quick comment also.
will you go first?
Oh, I was just gonna say that, if you don't mind, that, historically, or at least the 5 years I've been on here, we've relied on volunteer organizations to put on the 4th of July and really organize it. And so I don't think we have historically been involved. And so maybe that's different, and maybe the council wants to have more involvement. I know that we got updates maybe about the parade or the fireworks, but I don't remember historically receiving any reports. That's not a criticism. I'm saying this year was the same as every other year, which is you guys take care of it. And now it could be that because of the situation we're in, people want more information. So I think probably you did the same thing that's happened the entire time I've been on the city council, which is you guys were just taking care of it. And now, you know, the community has some concerns which are valid and make sense and were addressed here. And so maybe we just need to figure out, like, when those concerns come up, you know, what is a good way that we can partner together to support each other, these two organizations that, you know, are partners, and make sure that we have a unified voice going out about what we're doing. And I think, you know, I think maybe this year is just a little bit different than other years, and so we need to come up with a different protocol going forward. But I think, you know, that's what I assumed happened, is because I don't think we were involved. I don't remember ever being involved in planning the 4th of July or the fireworks, and I think, yeah, maybe this year is just different because of the drought and the fires. And so that's sort of my take. I think that it's totally legitimate to ask for a new form of communication or more communication, totally legit, but that I think is a new ask, because previously we just said, please handle it for us.
Thank you.
So.
And that has absolutely been the history. It's always been, especially the 4th of July fireworks show, has always been the volunteer association's purview. The partnership with the city has been over the plaza celebration and the parade. When we stepped in when the community center was no longer able to do it.
Yeah, probably like anything that changes, there's like a few, rough edges to get worked out, and I'm sure, we can do it, so.
Yes, I just had a real quick question I forgot to ask. I love the traditional fireworks, but moving forward, has there been any thought given to perhaps adding some sort of like laser show? Like I know that on social media that was discussed quite a bit, that would, obviously reduce fire danger, reduce, the effects of a drought environment. Perhaps add some of that. Obviously, we can't do that this year, but is that something the Volunteer Firefighter Association has considered moving forward?
Entertain cats.
Correct.
We have not specifically had that discussion on lasers. We're always looking for ways to improve the show and to keep up with the latest technologies and opportunities. So I'm sure that's something that we
Yeah,
can
it just
look
seemed
at
like
in
an
the future.
interesting idea, maybe just a compliment and maybe reduce some of it. But I do want to thank the Vice Mayor for inviting you here. I think it was really important that the community hear this. I also want to thank you and your organization. Growing up, the fireworks was a highlight every year as a kid here, and since I've become older and had friends from around the state and around the Bay Area come to Sonoma on the 4th of July, they're just so impressed with our fireworks show, and they can't believe such a small town puts on something like that. And so I want to thank you and all the good work you do. And I think it's really important to have this discussion. And I have full faith and confidence in your organization that you will execute a fantastic and safe show as you do every year. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
A very technical question. I know that this event is sponsored by the nonprofit organization. I pretty much for sure you have the insurance, the liability insurance covered. Do you have any additional insurance covered for the fireworks show?
Yep. It's all part of our association's policy.
Do you know how much? All right, that is the general one. Yeah, that is it.
So I would like to reveal, Councilmember Harrington,
Yes.
for 2 or 3 years, I was given the important job of cleaning up on the 5th with the Girl Scouts and the Boy Scouts and other volunteers, and I really enjoyed it. Of course, my husband and I couldn't work together because I was telling him how to pick the papers up. But I had a wonderful time, and I really appreciate the hard work. We just have, we had a little dust up here, so now you've heard what I feel, and I appreciate your listening and sharing.
Thank you, and thank you, Amy, for your service and leadership over your time on the council. We're going to miss you, but hopefully you're still in the community, and we'll see you there. And thank you, Dave. I'll echo Mark's comments. Appreciate your leadership as well. And happy birthday to my daughter, Ellie.
So I believe I'm on to 3.2.
So, Madam Mayor and council members, because there's enough on this agenda, I contacted the PG&E rep, and there's a possibility, I don't know if this is an open secret, that we may have to meet again tomorrow to finish up the agenda.
Right.
So the PG&E rep is prepared to do that presentation tomorrow, because 2 in a row is a lot.
Oh, great, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much. So at this point, we're moving on to 4.1, discussion, consideration, and discussion, consideration, and possible action to approve fiscal year 2021 City of Sonoma operating and capital improvement budget with the following resolutions, and I will turn this over to those in charge.
So, thank you, Madam Mayor and council members. What we thought we'd do, because this is, I think, the first time that we've been able to spend too much time with the budget, hopefully not too much, is kind of thumb through this binder in front of you just a little bit, just to show you what's here. We're not going to do a presentation beyond that, and then would certainly welcome your questions. And I know, just because it has been so busy, if you felt like you had some questions and weren't prepared to adopt the budget tonight, again, that's what tomorrow may be for. We do need to adopt it before June 30th. That's ideal. So with that, I'm going to start just a little bit, and then Sue Casey is going to assist me. So in your binder, the standard things that my city manager brain asks council members to look at is the budget message, and that's the first section, which generally can be summarized by saying, we're doing pretty well. We had certainly a tough hit with the pandemic. We had to use reserves. We were thankful for the federal stimulus bill, which sent Sonoma $2.64 million. That was vital in filling up our reserves. So we're very thankful for that. And overall, we think this is a fairly conservative budget revenue side and modest expenditure side. We are proposing some significant one-time investments, such as critical software security, security software to make sure we're not victims of ransomware attacks. There's lots of ways to protect ourselves there. We also want to look at a better way of processing permits that's easier for the customer, and also a better financial system. So we kind of use this federal stimulus bill as an opportunity to take care of these one-time needs. And then the rest of your budget is the broader financial summary, which you'd see everything from revenue estimates to the staffing positions to the proposed changes in the staffing positions. The last page of that, 47, is the reserve summary. An important page, an important graph where you see we're coming back to where we would have been, say, in fiscal year 18-19. I think coming back thoughtfully and carefully, not all the way back, but there's much we don't know today sitting here on June 21st, and that is there's a lot going on in the economy right now, a lot that we can be excited about, but we just don't have those numbers in. You'll have those numbers within weeks, if not a few short months, and that can change the reserve picture significantly, and significantly to the better. But as of the proposed budget, it's fairly conservative in that regard. And then the next section of the budget shows all of the departments, including some organizational charts, everything from your own council budget to the city manager's budget to planning, building, and finance, public works. And then the latter part of the document, starting with page 117, is the CIP, otherwise known as the Capital Improvement Program. That's something that Director Ferguson pulls together. There's great summaries in there to show exactly what we're proposing to spend for improvements to the community, including the Broadway safety element item that was mentioned previously. And then lastly, I won't go through these much further, but our enterprise funds and our special revenue funds. And we'd certainly welcome your questions, whether you want to dive deeper into some things or had different types of materials for us to present instead. Again, this is kind of our first time in explaining it to you, so we're anxious to hear if you had any comments or concerns or wanted things brought back to you.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Okay, so on the $300,000 for the new cloud-based electronic permitting, budgeting, accounting software, is that to replace the Springbrook? Yeah.
We would like to. Do. Springbrook has been, it's been sold, it's been bought, and it's back to a private company now. But the support is just not what it used to be, or really it's deteriorated. And the budgeting software that we actually implemented this year, it's called Extended Budgeting. It was helpful for this year, but when we actually, Jenna Burrows, the Deputy Finance Director, she actually input everything last year manually, put it all in, and it was helpful because you could look actually online to see what the details were for the budget. And then when we input the new budget this year, it's gone.
Oh, God.
And they said that the system was designed that way. And so, unfortunately, it's saved. I mean, we have it. We have a paper copy of it. But just things like that. It's like, how could it be a budgeting software if you can't see what your detail is from year to year? So there's just things like that we know there's other systems out there that are better. And so we definitely want to at least explore other opportunities. Wayne, our building director, he would love to get a electronic permitting, and that's really, I think he's ready to go on that, and that's part of the, but it would be nice if we could find a system that had everything, so.
Oh, okay. What is so I know we've talked about this before, people have said Springbrook is sort of outdated and there's moms.
It's not around anymore, Moms.
Not around.
That was our original.
What, do you know what is the like best practices, software?
Yeah, there's actually, there's several out there, and many agencies, actually, I know all of Napa County, they all went in together, all the cities, and they went with, the name's escaping me.
Tyler or somebody?
Tyler, and they do have, they have modules for each system, but, and I've looked at that, it's a very robust system, and it's something that you can do module by module, so that you could do your main modules, and then there's add-ons. And so there's ones out there that are much more robust and have been around for a long time, so.
And then I know that we had a problem before your time of people not being fully trained on our system. What's the training like for this? Are we going to make sure people get trained? Is there a budget for training?
Yeah, so that's, so we haven't really priced it. That was just our thought that we would like to go to a new system, and possibly we might have to save up for a couple years to go to a new system. I don't know what the cost is, and possibly we could do it in 1 year. But it takes 2 years to get a system in, and then training on so everybody knows how to use it. And that's always part of the implementation process.
And why is it better to set the money aside instead of leave the money in general in the reserves, and then when you figure out what you want, come back and do a budget adjustment?
We could do it that way. I don't know if possibly we could afford it this year with the 300,000. That might be a possibility. Again, we haven't priced it out, and we just it was just a preliminary thought that now with the extra funding, that might be something that it would really benefit the city to do something like that. So okay,
thanks.
Council?
Yes, thank you, Vice Mayor Agrimonti. The Federal CARES Act, I believe there are strings attached with some of that funding. Are all the projects that you're proposing with that money, acceptable under that legislation?
Yes, and the CARES Act was separate. We've already received those funds. It was just a really small amount. It's
So what's
the federal
the
funding.
new one? That's the old one. What's the new?
American Rescue Plan?
American Rescue. There's a lot of different ones these days.
There is a lot of strings attached. One of the uses is lost revenue, but there's a lot of documentation that has to go to it. And it's interesting, since they first came out, there's more documentation, being added. But we're very aware of it, and we're monitoring. So there's things that we're going to have to, make sure that we're crossing our T's and dotting our I's to get the funding.
And is that all sort of fungible in the sense that if we just put it all in the reserves, but then we spend more general fund? I mean, is there a way, even if the strings? Do you understand what I'm saying? The strings are attached, right?
Right, and we have, the amount that we're getting is we can document the lost revenue for that, and it's all in the general fund.
Okay.
Okay.
And then obviously a significant part of the budget, whether it's public safety or staff, these are all contracts that there's not a lot of obviously discretion up here. But when it comes to the community services, the top 4 nonprofits that we support for our important community services, are those all within that budget? And thank you very much for sending those line items today. Are any of those contracts, like for example, I know that for a few years we had 3-year contracts with the Vintage House Community Center. Are those up at this point?
Yes, they are. They actually, the 3-year contracts were up in 2020.
Okay.
They did a 1-year extension last year, and we were going to do it, 3-year contracts, but we could do 1-year contracts.
Okay.
If you want to, discuss it this year and talk about, how much each agency gets. Those are 4 major community providers, community services.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's my question, that we're not locked into any of these contracts on the community services part. Okay.
You'd probably want to then, when the budget is ultimately adopted, direct staff to just complete 1-year amendments rather than 3-year amendments, if that's your preference. The way that recommended action is set up for item 2, the resolution, is most of them are 3-year amendments.
Okay. Thank you.
I have a Oh, go ahead, Jack. Oh, okay. So on the recreation partners, we have, on recreation in general, we have I'm trying to think of what the right word is, the rule.
The policy?
Policy, thank you, of spending 1.5 of certain general fund revenues per year, and I think it's 80% to recreation and 20% discretionary, is that right?
It's a little more, 90 and 10.
90 and 10,
Yeah.
okay. So I guess I'm wondering, why is it better to have a set dollar amount instead of saying that each of the partners gets a certain percentage of whatever that amount is?
That, and again, I wasn't here when the policy was adopted,
Neither
or,
was I,
when, or when they did the study session on it.
Yeah.
And so, I think that you could definitely take a look at the policy, and if there's ways you want to change it, I mean, parts of the policy are outdated now, because some of the things aren't relevant anymore, so, we could definitely take a look at that, and again, it might be something that we want to do this year, to decide, I mean, I think what they did is they took an average of what each of those agencies had gotten through the years, and that's how they decided how they would be funded. So, I think that's certainly council discretion on how they would want to fund those agencies, so.
Yeah, because I would think that if it's supposed to be 90% of whatever that dollar amount is, then just assign a percentage to each one and have them get that amount each year, and then it's inherently tied to our revenues. It can go up or down, but it's not.
Right, and that's certainly your.
Since pandemic, we have running the city in the deficit. How much money and we spent from the reserve fund? Roughly, because last year that is a half year, right? And that's 2019 to the 2020.
So we'll have, Councilmember Ding, we'll have some actual information for you for 1920.
Yes.
We'll have some estimated information for you for 2021, because remember, we talked about the lag in revenues. TOT and sales tax will lag. We won't know what really happened on June 30th until probably September 30th. So,
that is right, yeah.
So what Sue will give you in just a moment is an estimate of where we think we're going to be, but I think we're being overly cautious in this number.
Okay. That means 2019 to 2020, we already got the number, because the fiscal year is still is closed.
1920 we'll know exactly, and Sue will give that to you.
Yeah, but on the paperwork, I didn't see exactly number.
Oh.
For example,
So
yeah,
it's-
that is confusing me.
It's in the budget message. Let me thumb through that with you.
That is the page number 4.
Page number 4.
Yeah, in the middle, and now estimated. I don't think we use the proper word.
Oh,
so
your
for
point
estimated.
is that should be final.
Yeah, it should be in the final. If it should be,
You're right, Mr.
Yeah.
Ding. Yeah.
or not a final, saying the actual.
Right, so I just want to caution on if you say final, because the numbers have not been we're in the middle of the audit for that year, so we're still saying estimated only because we don't have all the audit. There could be an audit adjustment that may happen, so.
That is possible, but based on recent 4 months ago, we had a meeting with the audit company, right? We just made changes, 4 or 5 places, not significant. So pretty much for sure, on this budget report, I would suggest we can use actual. Maybe it's not a final, but actual. That is more accurate, more solid. And if we got an audit, and then that is a certified report, we may come back to do some adjustments. This kind of possibilities are very, very low. Based on the last time, Agrimonti and I went through with the auditing company. No significant numbers change. So I think number here, how much reserve fund and we spend. Yeah, I hope we can use actual number. Not certified, but the actual number. Here we still use a rounding number, 660,000. doesn't make sense.
I think where you're going is appropriate. We could probably figure out a better term, but remember the audit that you folks reviewed is 1819. 1920 is still out there for us.
That is right. I
Right.
just based on our previous practice.
Yes.
Because
I
no
see your point.
significant amount to change, assuming we don't have significant amount of change, but right now, because the book is closed already 1 year,
Yeah.
we should tell the people exactly how much money we spend from the reserve fund.
Okay, I appreciate that comment.
Thank
We
you.
can make that change in the final budget.
Thank you. Are there any other questions before we take this? So,
Well,
oh,
do we have a rough number in terms of the total amount that we dipped into the reserves since the pandemic started?
A rough number?
Yeah.
I mean,
That's all. Rough's fine.
yes. In my mind, I'm sorry, my computer crashed. It's got this weird, so I had all these notes on my computer, and it's
Yeah.
gone. I don't know
Okay,
what
but
happened.
we'll get the financial
Yeah.
software, it's fine, yeah.
Yeah,
That's the
exactly.
theme of this budget. Unavailable
So,
data on
the number
computers.
that's sticking in my head is with the federal funding, we will have used 980,000 of reserves with if we put the federal funding. Is
My
that right?
microphone just died.
Well, that was actually my question. So you already included the federal funding from the Recovery Act? Because aren't we getting 2.6 from the Recovery Act? Okay.
Yeah, and that's for 21,
It-
22.
If you look at the first year that we dipped in,
Yeah.
which was 1920,
Right.
and then the current year,
Right.
and then the year in the proposed
Three.
budget by the time June 30th next year
2022,
arrives,
yeah.
including the federal subsidy, we should only be down about $900,000 throughout the whole pandemic. But if I were a betting man, and I'm not, and I can't project what it's going to look, I think that number is going to be closer to 500,000 or 600,000, just because there's a certain amount of revenue that's coming in right now that we're not making an assumption about. Because
Right.
you see it in the plaza.
conservative, right, yeah.
Exactly, so,
So without that, I'm just trying to without the American Recovery Act.
right.
That was just passed this year, 3.5.
3.5,
Okay.
yeah. So that was certainly a godsend for a community like Sonoma.
Yeah.
That relies so much on hotel bed tax and
Yes.
sales tax from beverages and eating out.
Thank you.
anyone else?
In terms of new FTEs, is the only new FTE proposed, what are they? What are the new FTEs that are proposed? I know there's one for the city clerk's office, but are there others? Or part-time employees?
So it's not really a new FTE, it actually combined two part-time positions into, so we don't have those part-time positions anymore, it combined it into a full-time equivalent. So we're really just taking two
Who were they?
part-times. Huh?
Who were they?
Or were they, well, one was the senior management analyst in community activities, who she's actually now in the senior management analyst in the city
Are
manager.
we talking about, it's easier if you just say their name. Are we talking about Lisa Jansen?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
all right, okay,
And so we did not refill that position.
Okay.
And then we have the part-time clerk in the city clerk's office. And
Who is that?
That is
LaTanya.
LaTanya.
Okay, so we had Lisa Jansen, who moved into a full-time, and we have part-time LaTanya, and the proposal is,
To a full-time management analyst.
I am confused how that is not adding a half a FTE.
Well, so we get rid of the half-time clerk.
LaTanya's position is gone.
Yeah, and then
Okay.
we get rid of the half-time senior management analyst in the community activities. And that, I mean, it was an approved position, so instead of filling that, and instead of, having the part-time clerk in the city clerk's office, then we make it into one full-time.
But we had a full-time senior previously. What happened to that position?
Lisa took that position.
So why do we need to make a new one?
Well, the argument made to me, which resonated with me, was especially it relates to Records Act requests and records retention. We need to stay ahead of that because of what is a fairly significant increase in demand in that regard. So, this is envisioned as a position that assists the city clerk.
Okay, so now I got confused. I'm sorry. I thought we were talking about Lisa Jansen. So Lisa Jansen moved into I'm sorry to just refer to people by name. Lisa moved into the position when it became vacant.
Yes.
And then LaTanya.
So Lisa took, Erica's spot.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. And then her halftime, she was contract, and then her halftime position became open, but she's doing a lot of the work she used to do.
Right.
Still.
Yeah, and it wasn't contract, she was actually made into a part-time employee.
No, I mean, originally it was contract, then that became unlawful, then she became permanent. Yeah. And but full-time, yeah.
Right, and so, and some of the other duties besides, you know, I mean, it would be nice to have a backup clerk if we, you know, so.
So, and then LaTanya, she resigned or, no?
No, she's.
So her position is, so we're talking about adding, where is the available position that's, we still are gonna have LaTanya and also one new full-time employee?
No.
So I'm just confused, I'm sorry.
No, we wouldn't have LaTanya anymore. We would actually go out and.
So LaTanya would lose her job and a new person would be hired is the proposal?
Well, right, and actually.
I just wanna be clear about what we're talking about.
We would recruit for the position, we're hoping that LaTanya would fill that position.
She's eminently qualified for that position.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. All right, okay, good.
We're not pushing her out and saying we're getting somebody else.
I got it. Okay, so you're basically talking about making LaTanya's job full-time.
Yes.
Is that correct? Yeah.
Without the names, yes.
Okay, all right. And for whoever applies and is the most qualified, but it's that job that she does would be expanded to full-time?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I see. Okay, I'm sorry, that was slow for me to understand that.
Oh, right.
No,
And-
it was confusing. I'm glad you worked it, because I even asked Dave, and Dave said it was a little confusing also. I was
So-
like, who's on first?
Okay, so the additional cost is that you're taking, what is the increase in salary between the current halftime? What is the increase? I know there's a vacancy on the other side,
Negative something?
It's actually, we actually save money.
but we have salary savings on the other one because it's not filled. So what, in terms of
yeah,
what is?
So the total, like, if you, it's actually a salary savings of $2,000.
No, I mean, we haven't refilled Lisa Jansen's prior
No.
position, so we have salary savings on that side. So if you don't include those salary savings, what is the increase in the city clerk's budget for increasing it to full-time? That's a lot of words in one sentence.
It's, I think the increase is about 30, I'm rounding it 35,000, so.
It's 35,000 with retirement, all in.
Oh, so no, that's not right. So if you're not gonna include Lisa's position, the
Right.
amount that we paid out for
That's
that, which
right,
was
yeah.
quite a bit.
If we eliminate that position and just say we're gonna add a 0.5
Right,
to,
Right.
what is that?
So it's about 95,000.
Okay, so it's a
Yeah.
$95,000 increase in the city clerk's office.
Yes.
Okay, I got it. Thank you. And are there any other proposed new employees?
It might be, yeah.
Not new employees, but know that we are proposing an increase to the contract with the sheriff.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But in terms of new full or part-time employees, there is only one proposal, which is what we just talked about, which it would cost $95,000 if you do not take into account the salary savings from the vacant position. Yeah, okay. Okay. I got it.
How many the people for our city staff belong to SUIE and SIEU, SEIEU the union, and we have responsibility to increase the salary from the next fiscal year.
I think it's like 18, right? Or is it more
Are
than
you
that?
talking about this fiscal year?
The next fiscal year.
Okay, we, the contract is up, so
No,
we
the
will be
question is,
negotiating next year.
How many people are in the bargaining unit?
Yeah.
I thought it was
I
like,
think it's 29 something or 30 something.
I don't think so, because our total staff is 39.
Yeah.
I think it's like
Just
20.
only.
Well, give us a few minutes.
Okay.
Okay.
So,
We can continue to take questions as we work on that one.
And so I just wanted to remind everybody, we sort of said we would set 45 minutes for this, so I don't know where we are, I don't know who has a timer, but I just know that we still are going out to the public. So if you're comfortable or you have another question, it's obviously, it's your responsibility to ask.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. The increase with the sheriff's contract, that was part of a negotiated agreement that was passed by this council last summer, right? So that's just a standard increase that is that's contractual.
Yes, certainly the position-related costs, sorry, separate out the position-related costs. Whenever you say, hey, I want a CSO and a deputy, they all come with a cost. That's what's not negotiable. The city can kind of select from the choice of how many deputies we want working. We usually certainly take the chief's recommendations in reflecting that.
So there are specific requests beyond the negotiated contract from last summer.
We didn't make any new requests this year, except I'm flying blind here without knowing. Orlando, Chief, you may be able to help remind us.
I was on the contract,
Okay.
and
All right.
the chief could talk about it too. So basically, when we reviewed the contract, there were, I want to say, at least 4 years where there were no increases from the sheriff for various reasons, and I think they got state or federal reimbursement, which they passed along those savings to us. So I think the effective increase was like maybe 1% or nothing for multiple years. And then last year they proposed an 11% increase, and they pass on their administrative costs to us directly, and also they negotiate with the sheriffs, with their union, for whatever their raises are. So we had almost no increase, and then they wanted an 11% increase. We didn't agree to that exactly, and so we eliminated the CSO, we eliminated the school resource officer, and we made cuts instead of taking the 11% increase. The sheriff's office told us that their minimum staffing, which they require, is 2 officers per service unit per shift, and that we are 1 unit, the city of Sonoma, and so they won't go below 2 officers because that's what they require to be safe. And so we are staffed with however many it is, the chief could tell us the number of officers so that people can take days off and things like that. And so they have a formula which is in compliance with some accounting rules that maybe Sue knows what they are, but how they pass on administrative costs to us. And a lot of the costs that got passed on to us, very large increases last year, were related to how they calculate administrative costs. And then also they got software whereby not all of the services they do for us are covered under the contract. So like people that investigate certain crimes, their time is charged hourly, and they used to not have the software to track that time, but then they got it, and so then they were able to actually charge for those services, which they were supposed to charge for before, but did not keep track of their time. So there were like all these little things that happened, but last year we took cuts where we could to avoid the increase. I don't know if the chief wants to add anything to that.
So if we have, no,
Do we have an SEIU number? Oh, we're still
I
looking,
think it's
sorry.
28. Yeah, but it could be 29. So.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, the reason why I mentioned this question is, I saw that they increase each year because by contract. And what I concern is non-union staff, and also it's a high level, you financial director, and the city clerk. So I haven't seen previous year the budget see any increase. Maybe you can do some research, see if it's possible what kind of level you are, what is the reasonable and the rate you can consider. I'm glad to see I didn't see that, but it doesn't mean that it makes sense. I really don't want to see out in the city just like a company running business and keeping the high level executives in the the low level or extreme low level. It's not healthy in the long term for the city's operation, because you are looking around and some other opportunities. I don't want to see that.
I think what we've done before is that whatever raise we negotiate for the frontline workers, the management has kind of like a me too, and they get the same thing. So if it's 3% or whatever it is, then management gets the same thing, but that's tied to the contract negotiation. So they kind of wait until whatever the frontline workers get, that's what management gets it.
And that is in this proposed budget.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
okay.
Okay. Thanks.
So are we just still on number 1?
Yeah, but actually, number two, and the essence of it is what Councilmember Barnett mentioned. That's what duration of contract you would like to see.
I see.
3 years or 1 year or something else.
Okay, thank you. So if there aren't any other questions, I'll move on to, I'd like to open the public hearing. No public comment on this? If you get up here, Jean. None?
Mayor Agrimonti, when you do close the in-person, it looks like we have one individual on Zoom that would like to speak.
I'll close the in-person comments and open to the Zoom comments.
It looks like Charlotte Hager is raising her hand.
The community center.
Yes, hi, can everyone hear me?
We think we can, yes.
All right, well, thank you so much to the members of the City Council. My name is Charlotte Hager, and I am the Executive Director at the Sonoma Community Center. And I simply wanted to take a minute or two to say thank you to the City Council and City staff for their ongoing commitment to support local nonprofits through the annual Community Fund Grant Program. The Sonoma Community Center is deeply grateful for our longtime partnership with the city to provide our neighbors with opportunities for enrichment and with programming that enhances the well-being of both individuals and the community at large. The Community Center is a unique and vital resource here in the city of Sonoma, and we are so grateful for the city's ongoing investment in the center. And I also want to thank you for incorporating funds into the city's capital improvement budget to underwrite the construction of 2 universal electric vehicle chargers in our public parking lot, which are currently being installed by Tesla alongside 8 additional Tesla superchargers. Our universal vehicle chargers will be some of the only ones publicly accessible in the city of Sonoma. And we're just really proud to be working both with the city and with Tesla to be able to offer these to the community. You know, for 68 years now, the Sonoma Community Center has worked to be a real hub, a place where all members of our community can come together and find the resources they needed. And we appreciate our partnership with the city to bring enriching programs to our community, and we're honored to now be able to support the city's efforts at building environmental sustainability by adding electric vehicle chargers to our list of community offerings. So thank you, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Do we have any other comments from Zoom? None? Then I'll close the Zoom public comments section. And I'm closing the public hearing. See, no? Oh, there's somebody. Sorry. Oh.
We're having still little mechanical problems, and Wayne's our guy. Anyway, we're welcome. Any other questions, or?
Can I ask a follow-up question to the public comment about the additional funding for the electric vehicle chargers? Yes, so I think this was decided before I was appointed to the council, but Tesla is paying for all of these chargers, but they're asking us to pay for $20,000. What's going on with that?
So as I understand it, there was a little bit of miscommunication with our members of our good CSEC committee, and they had made a recommendation to have the city council later provide $20,000 worth of funding for what are universal chargers. Tesla will put in its own chargers available for its own vehicles, but they'll also put in universal chargers. The latter, the universal chargers, they do not pay for. So Charlotte approached me and said, you know what, we're building them. Is the funding there? And the funding discussion had only made it through CSEC. So they made a good faith assumption based on that and started to do that. And Charlotte and I are both new, and we both had a good conversation about making sure that practices are improved in the future in that regard.
But typically the CSEC would not approve funding measures.
Only the council can do that.
Okay.
So I put that in the proposed budget, and I appreciate the awareness of it. They are being installed. They will be useful. That is the price for them. And they'll be used for any electric vehicle, not just a Tesla.
Including Teslas.
Including Tesla. It's Teslas plus.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's one quick fact, the community center, I think the end of redevelopment was 2015 or 2011. It doesn't,
2013-ish?
they were the last organization, the last money that went out to Sonoma went to them, 2.5 million to restore, retrofit, all of those things, plus $500,000. And that was the end of redevelopment here in Sonoma. So they're pretty lucky. They got a lot of improvements from that pool of money. I don't think there's no one from the public, and I do not see
I have
any.
comments.
I'm closing the
sorry.
public.
Oh, sorry.
So I'm going to close the public hearing, and I would like to bring it back to the council.
I guess I have some items that I would like to see included in the budget, and I don't know if you want me to just tell them and figure it out from there. Number one, I think basically the gardening, landscaping on the plaza looks pretty rough to me. A lot of the grass is dying, and I don't think we need a major, I know that the Parks group is working on
Deadheading.
a long-term plan, but I just would say, I think it's looking a little rough, and I think that we should put some money, and maybe we could, if people are interested in that, talk about what an appropriate amount would be. And I don't know if we hire a contractor or what we would do, but at least some kind of work on the grass, because it's dead in a lot of spots. And we talked about this previously, a lot of people are bringing their dogs to the plaza now, and that really kills the lawn. So I think there should be some special funds for that purpose, personally. I talked to the city manager about this, and maybe Dave can explain what's happening more, but I guess there's a countywide effort to hire a contractor who would do an inventory of all of the available affordable housing in the county. And I would like to participate in that so that we could have ours included. Maybe Dave, you could talk about what that is and what the amount would be.
Sure. The concept is that similarly situated cities like Sonoma, and there's a handful, of course, Cotati would be one, Sebastopol would be one, that have a majority of its affordable housing stock is in inclusionary units. And that each city has said, you know what, we don't feel like we're managing the inclusionary units in a manner that makes sure they're advertised correctly and an arm's length transaction, that the folks in there remain eligible throughout their tenure. So there's a discussion amongst what's called the housing leads in the county is to try to remedy that with maybe a shared contractor or shared staff member. Contractor's the better term because it wouldn't be a staff member. And I think I mentioned to Councilmember Harrington, I thought that was about a $30,000 item. And it would only be expended if that person or that firm came to be.
So I think that would be great, because that's one of our issues, is that we need somebody who has a dedicated effort to look at what we have and figure out how to market it to people. Because I think we actually have a friend whose sister was very low income, and she moved here, and she had a heck of a time figuring out how to even get the application to apply. And after she got all the hoops, she actually was able to get an affordable unit, but it was just really hard to even find out about it. So I think that would be good. And then I guess my last thing, which is a larger topic, basically, if we were to put together a proposal to become a charter city, and the voters were to approve that, then Sonoma would be able to charge their own transfer tax and other taxes, unlike a general law city. And we could use the transfer tax funds for our Affordable Housing Trust Fund. And so, for example, Petaluma is a charter city, and they charge $1 more than we do for transfer tax. And transfer tax is paid by the buyer, not the seller. So I think that would be good. And if people were interested in that project, I would suggest putting some money in the budget to explore it. But in terms of our ability to increase taxes, I was saying to Councilmember Barnett that I thought one of the main industries in the town of Sonoma obviously is real estate, and that's something that we're not, particularly involved in taxing, but in many other cities they are, and that would be a great stream of revenue for the city for affordable housing or whatever else, but we would have to be a charter city first. Other things could be done as well if you're a charter city, which you know, Councilmember Agrimonti, but I would propose some amount of money for that project if people wanted to work on it. Those are my proposals that are not included on here.
So, Councilmember Barnett, do you have anything you'd like to share before we move on?
Not at this time. I was actually, we're going to continue this to tomorrow as well. So
I think you were sharing.
That certainly works. And that allows us, I could get a better cost estimate for Councilmember Harrington's landscaping concept. Again, it'd be kind of a guess, but better than just picking out of thin air right now.
yeah, I would support Councilwoman Harrington's proposal on that. And I just also want to talk a little more about the cemetery. Obviously, that's a separate fund, but one of the reasons why the Vice Mayor and I have been wanting to get going on this is because it should be able to pay for itself. And I don't know how many people actually work or assigned to the cemeteries. I think it's one, right?
One, I think.
I don't know the answer to that, but my point is we have 3 cemeteries. There's, Mountain Cemetery is obviously very historic and large, and we need to start thinking maybe about obviously assigning more people, I think, to take care of not just the parks, but the cemeteries. The people that we have do a great job with what they have, but there's a lot of acreage here to maintain and take care of with very little resources. So I want to speak about that a little further perhaps tomorrow.
But what are you thinking about? What were you thinking in terms of the dollars or
I don't know if that's
people,
something we can do for this budget year, but I think obviously every budget is sort of built on itself moving forward in terms of a precedent, and I want to sort of talk about moving forward how we're going to address these cemeteries and these parks. And obviously we've yet to do the cemetery study. Hopefully that will be coming in August as our quarterly agenda planning session later we'll say. But I just wanted to sort of speak about that further, and that's an enterprise fund, correct? The cemetery?
It is an enterprise fund now. It does not make money.
Yeah, it loses money, yeah.
But
Right.
it's, and there's several loans that were never codified. So there's a lot of things out there. I kind of call the cemetery my last frontier, because it's the one thing
It's the
we
last
have
frontier
not.
for the people there as well.
Exactly.
Maybe.
We
Yeah.
haven't tackled it yet, and
Right.
it will, it's sort of an exciting thing for me because it is something that, I've
Yeah.
wanted to do but we just haven't had the time.
Right.
And so that's something that we'll be looking at. There's a lot of things that could be done, and everything is on paper there as well. So that's another thing that the records person would help with is actually getting all of the 3x5 cards into our into docket imaging so that we would have it in a
All the
separate
records,
place. Yeah, yeah. So
do we have any vacancies in Public Works right now?
yes.
Which ones do we have? I'm just curious about, because those are the people doing that work, right?
Yeah, and we're actively recruiting right now. We have the environmental compliance specialist, and we have the water supervisor.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I have today I got a very good answer from Ms. Fukuson regarding the sidewalk. Thank you so much. Appreciate you give me the cities and the law and ordinance and the history. Right now, I totally understand. So the sidewalk issue, especially right now in the area number 11, right? That is the last part for the fix for inspection. So our budget is just only in the $60,000. $60,000, $10,000 from general fund, $50,000 from the gas tax. So I'm wondering, these kind of money definitely will not go to really in the fix or shaving that sidewalks, and then impossible. The minor question is maybe we need to improve our community education. And based on our minor communication with the neighbors, they sounds like they don't understand. And maybe they pretended they don't understand the law because this kind of the fix cost and the reparations should be responsible by the homeowners. They don't understand. I'm thinking if protect our city and in the lawsuit because nobody knows. I look at it, that is very dangerous. And the sidewalk already blocked. Neighbors put in a very little rather than a flag around there. But somebody, little kid still walk over there. Or some other people when, get in trouble over there. So that anything can happen. So we don't know that it's the consequence. So I'm thinking maybe when we do inspection and reparation, and maybe we can improve some of the enforcement. How to carry that out. The ordinance today, you send me the email. Tell them you should fix, give them the deadline, 60 days or 90 days. If they continuously not doing anything, maybe out in the city, could, send the people fix it. Bill to them. Tell them what is the consequence. Otherwise, nobody knows, and accident any time. We cannot accept this kind of a consequence. It's very, very dangerous. In the area I just mentioned, that is the Fine Avenue, F-I-N-E, Fine Avenue. That is the area in the so-called, according to the budget, that is so-called area number 11. Yeah. So thank you.
Thank you, and we're going to be moving on. I have one thing I'd like to add. Anthony Navarro, our new employee, I know he had somebody out there deadheading roses, so, they're working very hard, and maybe if, I think he reports to you, is that right? He reports to you, I'm sorry.
Vice Mayor Agrimonti, Anthony Navarro, the Park Cemeteries and Facilities Supervisor, he has a lot of responsibilities. He reports to Public Works Operations Manager Chris Pegg.
But he comes with a huge, wonderful history of working for other cities, so I know the biggest issue for many people is that fountain, I hope no one gets the bubonic plague from it, it's just pretty bad. So I'm looking forward to Anthony finding out a process, and it may even cost us some money to devise a new filtration system. I don't even know what I'm talking about, but I know he's doing a great job. The plaza looks better since he's arrived. So I think we've already had staff responses and council input, and we've had public input, and we've also had the Zoom input. So I'm moving on to.
Are we, do we need to make a motion to continue it till tomorrow, or?
I think that would be helpful, yes, because you've had the public hearing, Jeff, you continue to tomorrow.
Can I ask a quick question before we do? And then perhaps I can make the motion to continue. The capital improvement program, that can always be amended and modified, right? It was even modified this year with the Broadway. Because I just,
Anything can be modified during the year?
Yeah.
So.
Because there's no, obviously I'm gonna go back to the cemetery, but we're gonna have a cemetery report in August, and I've noticed there's no, CIP does not include any cemetery projects through 2026, which, is probably gonna be unacceptable once we get that report back. So I'm just want to clarify for the public that we can amend that moving forward.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so I
Well,
guess I'm looking for a motion.
I will make a motion that we continue item 4.1 and 4.2 to.
We didn't open 4.2, did we?
It's not 4.2, sorry.
Actually, it is, you're way ahead of us, Councilmember Barnett. 4.2 cannot be adopted without 4.1 being adopted, so you could continue them both.
Oh, okay.
Do we have to open 4.2?
But are you talking about 4.112? Not,
I'm talking about-
4.112 is different than 4.2?
I was talking about 4.1.
Oh, sorry.
But
Also?
4.2 also needs to be continued, but you may want to open and close a public hearing on that.
Okay.
All right, well, I'm just gonna make a motion to move item 4.1 to, and what's the proper terminology, an adjourned meeting?
An adjourned regular meeting that is likely to be tomorrow at 6 o'clock.
That is likely to be tomorrow, June 20.
Oh.
That is.
Okay. That is going to be June 22nd at 6 p.m. in the council chambers.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Dean?
Aye.
Councilmember Barnett?
Aye.
Councilmember Harrington?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Agrimonti?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries unanimously.
And just like for the public, because it's not on the city website, so we will be holding a city council meeting tomorrow to continue our discussion of the budget for anybody who's watching, and we will have some answers to some of the things we brought up today, and that tomorrow is a day it's anticipated to vote on the final budget.
So, and Mr. Kiff, I think we discussed some things about 4.3. Are we moving forward with this, or?
You'd want to stay on 4.2 now.
Right.
And you could open a public hearing about the fee schedule, which would be based on the budget's adoption. And then close the public hearing, and then continue that item till tomorrow as well.
Without any comments?
You do want to take some public
Yeah.
comments if there's any.
That sounds good to me. So on to 4.2, conduct a public hearing to adopt a resolution updating the City of Sonoma fee schedule based on fiscal year 21-22 operating budget. Assistant Manager recommendation, conduct public hearing and adopt the resolution. So I'm turning this over to our interim city manager.
So can we make a motion now to continue it?
To open
Or-
public.
We have to do public.
It's set up as a public hearing. You'd continue the public hearing until tomorrow, but if someone came tonight and they don't plan on coming tomorrow, it would be nice to allow them to speak on that tonight.
Oh, okay. So take public comment on the
Right.
merits of it.
Right.
Sorry.
Right.
Who's looking? So,
So you should open it to public comment this time.
okay. So at this time, I'd like to ask if there's anyone from the public who would like to comment on 4.2. Seeing none, I'll close the public comment. How Zoom? Is there anyone?
There's no one raising their hand at this time, Mayor.
So
Vice
I've
Mayor Agrimonti.
opened the public comment for Zoom, and I'm closing the public comment for Zoom.
Motion to continue item 4.2 to tomorrow at 6 PM.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Dean?
Aye.
Councilmember Barnett?
Aye.
Councilmember Harrington?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Agrimonti?
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
And we're able to move on to 4.3. Mr. Kiff, okay. 4.3, public hearing, discussion, consideration, and possible action to adopt a resolution declaring a Stage 2 mandatory conservation water shortage for the City of Sonoma Water Service Area. Public Works Director, City Engineer recommendation. We are actually going to be holding a public hearing here. And so I'm turning this over to our Public Works Director. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Agrimonti and members of the council, as we discussed on June 7th, when the council declared a stage 1 water shortage, our region is facing the second consecutive year of drought. I think we've all heard a lot about just statewide and especially in our county how dire the water situation is this year. So a reduction in water use through voluntary, which we did on June 7th, and now mandatory conservation measures by the city's water customers is needed. We all know the city relies on Sonoma water to provide water from the Russian River through the Sonoma Aqueduct. That's where we get 90% of the water that we provide to the city's water customers. On June 7th, we declared a phase 1 water shortage, but on June 14th, the State Water Board issued an order that requires all of the water customers that get water from the Russian River to reduce our water consumption by 20% from that Russian River water source compared to last year. And this will take effect July 1st and continue through mid-December of this year. And there are numerous mandatory conservation measures described in the city code and in the staff report for a stage 2 water shortage. And I would be happy to go over those if the council would like, or assume that you've read them and move on at your discretion. I do want you to be aware that it's city staff's intent to urge voluntary compliance as much as possible. While there are enforcement mechanisms available in the city code, we do want to do friendly reminders. We have an oops tag that we need to update a little bit, but we have a oops tag that we provide when someone notices someone overwatering or irrigation leaks, those kinds of things, where we can just let them know, hey, we noticed this, or a neighbor calls and we can provide a oops tag and encourage voluntary compliance. We also have water conservation measures on our website and through the Sonoma Marine Water Saving Partnership. There's a lot of measures out there that people can learn about online. We did the drought drop by. We may do another one in August where people can get water saving devices, and they can also pick those up at City Hall. So we're doing as much as we can to support. We need our customers to work with us and reduce their water usage as we move into a stage 2 water shortage level. We do have a press release to go out as soon as a water shortage, the stage 2 is declared. The stage 2 does include restrictions in watering days. Staff is recommending limiting watering days to Monday and Thursday evenings from 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. So that's something that people will notice. If someone's watering on a day they shouldn't, they may report that to the city, and we will deliver an oops tag and let people know, no, you were watering when the watering is not allowed. The best way we can conserve water is to water outside landscaping less, conserving water for basic human health needs. And those are the main points I wanted to make, and I will let you know the recommended action. This is a public hearing, so staff recommends that the council hold a public hearing and adopt a resolution declaring a stage 2 mandatory conservation water shortage for the city effective July 1st. And I would be happy to answer any questions or elaborate more on the stage 2 water conservation measures.
So do I have any questions from the council? Jack?
Yes, we have to. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. And also, I want to say thank you for your immediate education program. You talk about how to save the water, what is current situation in the last week on the KSVY local radio station. We got a feedback. Yeah, it's wonderful. Yeah, thank you.
I have actually one question. Okay. You sent a chart in the past week about the summer allocation from the Russian River, and I believe you mentioned we're going to definitely have to reduce our historical usage from the last 3 years because our allocations are much lower than we've, as a city, used for the last 3 years, correct?
The allocations for the city from water through the aqueduct will be cut by 20% compared to, it's a little confusing. You must have been doing your math, right?
Well, yeah.
Because when I looked at that chart as well, it seemed like the number that was provided to us from Sonoma Water was a 20% reduction in our average water use for the last 3 years of Russian River water, not 20% compared to last year.
Correct.
Yeah.
The 3 years. Yeah.
So what the state board is telling Sonoma Water they have to do, and what Sonoma Water is telling us we're restricted to, the numbers are a little different, but the same general
ballpark
concept. Got to conserve.
So I guess my question is, I mean, historically, when we've had droughts, the city has met those targets, correct, through mandatory conservation?
The last severe drought was in 2014. I wasn't here, but I think we did meet the target.
We're all still here, so we got through it.
As a city, and also collectively as all the water contractors did meet the targets.
And so my primary question is, do you have sort of a real-time way of analyzing current water usage in the water area, like on a daily basis? Like, you know if we're meeting the targets, or could... No. We don't, okay. So how do we
One
measure
of our
that?
capital improvement things was to put electronic water meter readers on everything so that we could have instant real time.
Okay.
But we haven't done it yet, but it's in our CIP budget. I think that's the only way you'd be able to do it.
Okay.
And Councilmember Harrington's right, we do have advanced metering infrastructure, which would allow not just customers and the city to know how much water is being used on a daily basis. It would also have a system built in, so if someone was away from their home and their irrigation system broke and water was going all over the place, and it was happening in the middle of the night, so people didn't really, we would get a red flag, they would get a red flag, and we could take more immediate action instead of waiting until the end of the month. They get a high water bill, they complain, we try to work it out, but meanwhile, a bunch of water's been wasted.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Water parks with recycled water. That's still not.
The amazing new ball fields behind the school, high school, while a lot of the field is not, grass that needs irrigation, it's artificial turf. There is a lot of landscaping out there that does need irrigation. They put purple pipe in with that project, and so all that area will be watered with recycled water. There is a purple pipeline heading out towards Presswood, so it could convert over to recycled water in the future. Just haven't got that project underway yet at the schools. And there's a lot of recycled water that is used to water crops south of Sonoma. And while there could be a lot of money spent, we did do a recycled water study not that long ago to check out the feasibility of bringing recycled water to more parks in the city. I think there's actually more value to the city in having recycled water used for the crops down there to keep the salt water on the bay side, keep the water, that aquifer between the city and the bay, good clean water, because the farmers aren't deepening their wells to take more aquifer water.
Thank you for telling me that, because I forgot about the saltwater problem over there. Okay, but thank you. The only other thing I'd like to mention is that, just a comment, people use their sprinkler systems, not the, just regular ones, not the ones that shoot up in the air. But try not to get mad at people, because some of them are on schedules. They don't normally do it in the day. So don't assume people are wasting water when they're doing that. So I thought people should just know that, because sometimes they're on a schedule or they missed a night. So it's not really great to water in the day anyway, because it just doesn't work. So I guess that's it for comments, and I'd like to take this out to the public. And this is 4.3, Stage 2, mandatory conservation. I'm not seeing any comments. Oops, there you are.
Is that on? There we go. Good evening again, Madam Mayor and council members. Mark Bodenhammer on behalf of the Sonoma Valley Chamber of Commerce. I don't know the specifics and if there are certain numbers that are being, obviously I want to just state first and foremost, we have a water crisis happening, and I'm certainly well aware of that. I do know an issue that's come up in other communities that I want to make sure we are at least considering is the amount of water that was not used last year by a lot of entities that were closed down for the entire year. So there are sometimes, let's say, a hotel property that was closed for 9 months out of the year. I just want to make sure if we are taking a look at putting a mandatory restriction on how much water they use, that we maybe consider numbers like 2019 or something along those lines, so that we aren't, completely gouging somebody that just didn't have the opportunity to use any water last year. And same can be said for residents too. I think a lot of people are being more conscientious and installing low-flow toilets and showers and things like that, and so maybe taking a look at kind of their historical use rather than just looking at the last year, if we do choose to do something along those lines. Thank you very much, and fully support taking this really seriously, obviously, because this impacts everybody. Thanks.
Thank you. That's interesting. I didn't think about that. So I just wanted to pass that on to our city manager. You've heard that. Let's see. Okay, so I think, are there any? No.
There are none.
You beat me. No, just a sec. So I've opened it, closed it, and we've done receive public comments, repeat from Zoom, close the public hearing. And are there any questions the staff needs to respond to? No?
I have a quick quick question. So, how does our use of wells change when our water allocation from the Russian River is decreased, or does it?
We are actively working with our interim water supervisor who's filling in for a few more weeks, and then we'll have a new interim water supervisor until we can address that need. Is looking at our wells and figuring out how we can maximize our well production while still protecting the aquifer to get through the drought.
So, assuming that it doesn't harm the aquifer, then there would be increased well production during this period to make up for some of the loss from Russian River?
Potentially.
Potentially. Okay.
So the issue is, on the deep aquifer in Sonoma Valley, and it's very difficult to recharge. So because during the past 4 or 5 years, it's drought, but never testing show us never returned it back and the original level.
Oh yeah, you're on the groundwater,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, so that's the reason. In a total, we have the 2,000 wells, groundwater. Right now, no any policy. Everything is a volunteer. So the county, they ask us to interview the 3 consulting companies, try to the set up and the fees and the rates in the future. Otherwise, this is, resource, just use it, and they charge nothing, But anyway, local and the farmers and the resident users are very concerned. They know how appreciated, how precious that's the water. I don't think they abuse, but they are very, very, careful. That is encouraging. Thank you.
And thank you so much. And this is our GSA representative. That's why he knows these things. Thank you so much. Are there any responses from staff on this? Or you're ready to move on? I'm looking for someone to, for a resolution, if you'd like to.
I put the motion for approve to accept resolution declaring stage 2 mandatory conservation water shortage for City of Sonoma water service area.
And is there a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Ding,
Aye.
Councilmember Barnett,
Aye.
Councilmember Harrington,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Agrimonti.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. So, thank you so much, and now on to, I think it's 4.4. Discussion, consideration, and possible action to introduce an ordinance relating to the adoption of a fire impact fee for new development within the city limits of the Sonoma city limits. Mr. Kiff.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and council members. This item you've talked about once before. This is brought back to you tonight as an introduction of an ordinance that would enact what's known as a fire impact fee. And for folks at home, fire impact fee would apply only to new development, and it's scaled in terms of whether you're a new retail or office development or a new home, new single family, new multifamily. It exempts ADUs below 750 square feet. And basically it says you would be charged a fee, and that fee would come at the time where you pull your building permit. And the fee goes to supply and fund the new fire equipment that is caused by that development itself. So it's an incremental change in the amount of fire equipment. The fee, that's why the fee is not, it's certainly a substantive fee. It's not a huge fee. I'll relay what those are. And this is a fee that is levied today all around Sonoma within the Sonoma Valley Fire District. And if the council agrees to introduce the ordinance and adopt the fee, that fee then will apply also to new development within the city limits of Sonoma proper. And again, basically it's $1.72 a square foot for single family. It's $2.91 a square foot for multifamily. It's $1.90 for a new mobile home. And then there's a non-residential component as well. in order to adopt a fee, we have to look at and have conducted a nexus study, which shows exactly what the fee will be used for and how it's directly related and not inflated, not too high, not too low, directly related to the cost of providing that new equipment or apparatus. So that's been done. The most recent study was February of this year. Where in effect, if you adopt this ordinance, you're incorporating the fire district's nexus study to that. We do have experts available that worked on this for the fire district. Again, it went through the Board of Supervisors back in March, so it does apply all around us. And then Chief Akre is here as well if you have any questions about this.
Are there any questions? Yes.
Yeah, I have a question. And I think I probably know the answer, but I just would like it stated for the community. Why is the impact fee so dramatically higher for multifamily housing versus single-family residential?
So the basis of that is for multifamily dwellings. They're also looking at this not just from a fire standpoint, but from all of the services that we provide. And as you know, the council's well aware and community's aware, we provide EMS services, including ambulance transport for the entire community. So when we look at multifamily units, there's an increase in the population that is going to be within that structure. So it's an increased demand for service.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions?
Didn't we review this matter previously, or am I misremembering that?
You did. We gave a briefing on it as to whether or not you felt like you wanted to see this come forward any further.
Any other questions from the council? Seeing none, I'm going to open the public forum. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak on this issue? Sorry, seeing no one, I'm going to ask for Zoom. Is there any public comments?
There's no one who's raised their
Boy,
hand.
this is going well. Maybe it's this gavel. I'm going to close the public comment section. And there's no questions, I think, for staff. So I would like to ask, what is the pleasure of this council? There's I think, a resolution, is that right?
Before you make a motion, there's a correction we want to make. The ordinance, as it's attached, needs the appropriate signature plates. It doesn't have that. So in your motion, if you'd incorporate just staff's comments right now. We wanted to make sure, I was concerned whether this would go tomorrow night versus tonight. If it passes tonight, obviously the date would be June 21st, not June 22nd, so that'd be a second change. Anything else I missed, Mr. City Attorney?
No, the language that's found at the end of the ordinance says that it's being introduced and adopted on the 22nd. But it's only being introduced, it's being introduced tonight if you take that action, so that language needs to be changed. And then the city manager indicated the normal signature block material, the attestation from the clerk needs to be added. So if you make a motion tonight to introduce this ordinance, we would request that you include those amendments.
Make a motion to introduce an ordinance adopting the fire impact fees for new development within the city of Sonoma, and to add a signature block and correct the date as stated by the city attorney.
I second.
So we understand? Okay, thank you for telling us. Could I have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Ding,
Aye.
Councilmember Barnett,
Aye.
Councilmember Harrington,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Agrimonti.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
And we are now moving on to 4.5. However, this is going to be continued for tomorrow night. Is that correct? Thank you.
This is actually continued to August 16th.
August 16th. Oh, that's right. It's right there in bold black and white. Thank you.
But does it need to be opened, or it's automatically continued, or it's? Oh, so we have to open that one?
So the city clerk is pointing out, this is a second continuance. So it was continued to our previous meeting to tonight. It's continued now if you approve that continuance to August 16th, just for the record.
I think it should be open to hear anybody comment on whether they agree with the continuance.
Okay,
And
so
once
with
that-
the continuance.
Yes.
Okay, so I would like, this is for the council as well?
It's for the.
Comment?
after the public comments, you can
Okay,
then comment
so I'm
yourself.
taking out public comment. Seeing none, I'm bringing it back. And I also have to check nobody on Zoom. All right, so we are going to continue this.
Motion to continue item 4.5 to August 16th, 2021.
Looking for a second.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Dean,
Aye.
Councilmember Barnett,
Aye.
Councilmember Harrington,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Agrimonti.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
So we are now moving on to something that's very important to us. I'm at 5.5, excuse me, 1, discussion, consideration, and possible, action regarding filling an upcoming position, vacancy on the city council, either by appointment or by calling for a special election. So I'm asking for your,
You folks have talked about this enough, you may not want a staff report. You kind of know what your
Okay.
options are.
and our city clerk as well. Okay.
I guess the only issue, which we can't get into my replacement tonight, but I did speak to the city attorney this morning about the process, and he informed me that the majority of a city council cannot be via appointment, and also I think because of the length of my term that's left, it has to be by election. So just as a general statement, I believe it is correct that my seat will have to be replaced via an election.
Can I ask a follow-up question on that? Is that okay?
Please.
Because it's sort of related to something not on the agenda, but if Councilwoman Harrington's seat by state law has to be on the ballot in November, correct? If that is still an option to put the former Mayor Harvey's seat on the ballot as well. That would be 2 separate seats, one, correct me if I'm wrong, but to fill a remaining 1-year term and then to fill a remaining Councilwoman Harrington's 3-year term. And so you would have to have 2 pools of candidates on the ballot, correct? Like typically in a Sonoma City Council election, everyone runs and the top 3 or the top 2 win. But in this case, we would have to have 2 separate elections. Is that correct?
I think you're correct about that, yes.
So we would have to ask some people to run for this seat, and invest the same amount of money for 1 year left, and another group of people to invest time and effort into running for a seat that has 3 years left.
Right, so we would have
Right.
2 seats on the ballot, and one of them would have to start rerunning in 10 months, and the other one would rerun in 3 years. It's
2.5 years.
2.5 years.
No, 1.5, sorry.
3 years for me, and 1 year for Logan's seat, and so the question is, would anybody want to run for a seat where they would have to run for election and then run for re-election starting about 10 months after their first election? That would be a lot of.
When you also had an option to run for 3 years.
When you could also run
Yeah.
for 3 years. It's hard to imagine anybody would, unless they didn't understand the process, would pick the short term. I mean,
So, let's see, we are going, so the choice is, of course, for Logan's seat.
Yeah, tonight we can only work on Logan's seat.
Vice Mayor Agrimonti, can you turn on your mic, please?
And Madam Mayor, so we set this agenda up so you have 3 choices you could make tonight. 1, you could appoint someone. 2, you could set in place an appointment process. 3, you could call for a special election.
Okay.
And that's
Direct us to bring back.
direct us to bring back, and that would be, we would have to bring it back before July 11th, so that would be a special meeting, which is doable. And because the election would be, in all likelihood, November 2nd of 2021.
I see.
Can
Well,
I
thank
just
you.
Can I just add one more caveat to that is, again, to remind you that the nomination period actually opens the following day. So if you made a decision on the 11th, the next day would start the nomination period.
And just a reminder about what we talked about before, I can't remember if it was the city attorney or city manager told us, this election can't be combined with the recall. It has to be its own separate election.
And recall too that July 11th, the law requires that this election be called at least 114 days before November 2, which falls on July 2nd, I'm sorry, the 11th, which is a Sunday. So we're talking about having the council meet sometime prior to the Sunday, the July 11th, to call that election.
Could you say that again?
Yes, the election that you call, if you call an election to select these two council members, that election must be called 114 days before November 2. 114 days before November 2 is July 11th, which happens to
Oh,
be
it doesn't have to be held, it has to be decided.
held.
Called doesn't mean,
No, it just means to adopt a resolution calling the election,
Okay.
setting the election. And that must occur before July 11th.
and it has to occur on November the 2nd for some reason?
Yes.
Okay.
I have another question.
Okay.
We definitely will have one vacancy through early December when I assume the county clerk would certify the registrar, perhaps two, depending on what we decide today. Do we have the opportunity to appoint interim council members so we would have a full complement of council until the election is held? I mean, can we appoint somebody for 5-6 months, however?
You have the option of adopting an ordinance which allows you to do that, but it's too late to do that. Since you don't have such an ordinance, these positions would remain vacant until the election, if that's the route you wish to take.
Really? Okay. So we will definitely have at least 4.
No.
Well, with you gone on July 1st, we can't appoint a replacement for.
No.
Yeah, you will not be able to have 5 council members in September, October, and November.
And so if we put both of them, so what I'm getting to, if we put both of them on the ballot, we would only have 3 until, right?
Yeah.
And so if one of us gets sick, we don't even have a quorum, correct?
Bite your tongue.
Well, I'm just trying to like put out those facts. Okay, all right.
So, Mr. Kiff, could you please share with us again the 3 choices we have?
Certainly, Madam Mayor. So again, this is in reference to the seat held by Logan.
Yes.
You can make an appointment tonight. You can set up an appointment process to follow, to return to you with candidates to appoint, and that appointment has to be made by August 6th. That's the second process. The third process is the one the city attorney outlined, where before Sunday, July 11th, you can call for a special election, which would be aligned with the November 2nd, 2021 election.
Okay. So I would like to move forward and tell me what I'm supposed to do. I prefer,
Oh, should we do public comment?
yeah, okay. I'm going to take it out to the public. Yes?
Hello, members of the Sonoma City Council. Thank you all very much for being here. My name is Calvin Sanders and staff. Thank you, members of the City Council, for being here. And staff, my name is Calvin Sanders, and I'm here to express my interest in an appointment to the City Council position vacated by Mr. Harvey. On a side note, Councilwoman Harrington, I have firsthand experience what it's like to be or to observe a professional woman take this kind of responsibility through my whole childhood, and miss dinners and miss meetings. And I pushed the stroller with my sister in it when when Joanne was campaigning. So I completely understand where you're coming from.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I saw. So again, I'm here to express my interest in an appointment to the one-year position to make sure that there's a quorum in case somebody gets sick. I think that was a great point, Councilmember Barnett. I think I could dive into why I'm specifically, or what my platforms would be for the 3-month period, or for the 1-year period. It's safety, inclusion, and community oriented. And I'm happy to talk through these more specifically with each of you individually or now, or however the process works. However, I think it's more important to talk a little bit about what's inspiring me to be here tonight as a 24-year-old who lives in Sonoma. And Pretty simply, it's the fact that I grew up here. I left for 6 years, and I came back, and I really want to make a difference. Frankly, and I know I've said this to some of you before in different situations, but it takes leaving Sonoma to really understand what you have here. At the very surface level, the East Coast has flat rolling hills of dense forests that aren't super pretty. And I understand more now why you might want to preserve that living in this place. I grew up originally on Apple Valley Road, outside of city limits, and then moved into town. And I walked to school as a 6-year-old. And that is not a very common thing that we all get to enjoy here. I walked to the community center. I walked to St. Francis. I walked a presentation before they moved down Broadway, speaking of. And I walked to Presswood for a year, and that's a beautiful thing that I'd like to see preserved. Additionally, I believe that the housing situation that is unfolding in California and in the city of Sonoma is something that has changed since my youth here. There was a big question posed by Mr. Walsh at the Index Tribune to the former mayors saying, do the kids of Sonoma have a right to live here as well? And that answer has changed a little bit since I was a kid. I remember when we purchased our home in town so that I could walk to school, it was at a rate that was reasonable. And today now we see 2-bedroom, 1-bath homes going for $1.8 million.
Excuse me, Mr. Sanders.
Yes, ma'am.
Your time is up, but you're campaigning, so I'm going to allow you to continue.
I will wrap it up out of respect for everybody else here. Again, I am more than happy to talk about specifically what more specific policies I would be interested in bringing to the table and discussing and contributing. Ultimately, I want to serve the people of the city of Sonoma. I saw Mr. Brown in here, and I think it's great that he's still being here and quite inspirational. And here I am today asking you guys to consider my appointment. And again, happy to answer any questions you guys have specifically. But thank you all so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I answered your letter, so we did compare. I made some comparisons with you. So I think it's very important that someone like you gets up here and does this, because we're always looking for people to be involved, and you certainly seem to be a favorable candidate. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And just to reiterate one more point I forgot to say. Mr. Harvey obviously was a younger, more youthful representative up here, and I believe when he left, he said he would like to see a bit more of the same. Obviously, no offense to other folks who are not Gen Z and buried in their phones like I am. But I do think that would bring some valuable perspective. As somebody who is youthful, has left, has experienced what it's like to live somewhere else and pay taxes somewhere else, who works in the city, who helps employ, my background's in staffing, helps employ people here. I think I would bring a lot to the table, and thank you very much for considering.
Thank you. So, what am I doing? This is closing. Oh, sorry. Oh my God, Mark, are you wanting?
Mark wants to be on the city council?
That's not what's happening here. Just completing my trifecta of comments for tonight. First of all, welcome again. I want to start off just by recognizing the service of Councilwoman Harrington. It's really been a pleasure working with you for the duration of my time here, as far as I know, the entire history of the city of Sonoma. One of the things that I think people should know when they're considering running is that it's not just sitting up here that is involved in being a council member. It's showing up and getting out there and doing things. And Amy, you were out there when we were doing public safety power outage outreach, walking to businesses, one-on-one talking with people and explaining those things. When we were looking at the minimum wage ordinance and the tasting ordinance, you took time to go out and listen to people and hear and learn, and I just think that's really commendable. I've enjoyed working with you. We didn't always agree on everything, but I really, truly, I bring that up because I admire the way that you handle it when we don't. I actually have really come to appreciate getting those phone calls when you'd say, yo, what was that? And but I really think that's something that's missing in our society today. We always, got to the point where we didn't necessarily agree on every single point, but totally understood why you wanted to do, who you were trying to represent, and the things, the intent and the spirit behind what you were working towards. So totally appreciate all of that, and thank you very much for your service. Now, turning to the actual agenda item, I want to just strongly encourage you guys to appoint somebody as quickly as possible. I don't think that it's fair to the 3 people who will be serving to handle all of the committee assignments, and I don't think it's fair to the people of Sonoma to not have adequate representation. It is a big job. It takes a huge commitment. I totally understand why somebody, would have a difficult time committing that much time. But to put all of that work on 3 people's backs just doesn't function for this community. So I understand the concerns, and there was a good article written in the Index Tribune about the people's voice being heard, but this is kind of an emergency almost. We just need bodies up there. We need people who are committed to helping for the next 8 months or however long it is before we can get an election held. Maybe it would be somebody who agrees to only serve until an election can be conducted. I don't know if that's even possible or not, but the reality is 3 people is just not enough to do the job, and I would just really encourage you. I think we have 3 people who really care about the community that will be making this decision. Amy, if you're still part of that decision-making process, that makes 4 who would have really good, the interests of the community at heart. So just want to strongly recommend doing that. Thank you again, Amy, for your service. Really appreciate working with you. Good luck on the decision.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Thank you, Mark.
Good evening. It's lovely to see you all in person. I'm Sandra Lowe, and I saw you virtually a while ago. Congratulations to Mr. Barnett, and thank you so much for your service, and to you too, Councilmember Harrington. Regardless of what you choose to do, I will continue to apply. I think that the point was very well made by the previous speaker that you do need a functioning board, and probably an appointment, because you have to do the election or the other makes sense. And so I want to thank you and encourage you along those same lines to make that appointment. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good evening, City Council, Madam Vice Mayor, and the rest of you. My name is Bob Felder. I'm sure most of you recognize me. I've been a resident of Sonoma for 20 years now. I would also like to apply for this vacant position. I feel that my experience with what I've been involved with in Sonoma over those past 20 years will allow me to hit the ground running. I served with the Vintage Festival for 5 years. I was on the Sonoma Valley Citizens Advisory Commission for 2 years. I have been and still am on the Planning Commission for going on 12 years now. And also worked at the Visitors Bureau, and I'm currently on the board for the Vintage House. I recognize that this is a very important period in Sonoma for having all of the things that we have to face. I think I can bring the experience to get us through the next year and a half until Logan's term is up, to carry on the business of this city, and I'm putting my name in the hat to run for that position. Thank you very much.
Hello again. So first of all, I am so excited and impressed that individuals have come tonight who are interested in this position. But as a resident of Sonoma, I have to say that the fact that there was a recent vetting process and you had multiple candidates who we've all gotten a chance to hear from and meet is something that I think is worthy of consideration by this council, given the fact that expediting this appointment is very important. I think that Councilmember Barnett raised an excellent point, which is you will in fact not have a quorum if any of the 3 remaining council members cannot appear at a meeting. And so with that in mind, I would like to recommend that Sandra Lowe be appointed for this position, given the strength of the support that was shown back in February for her expertise, her readiness for the position, and hopefully these wonderful additional people will consider running in November for the 3-year term.
So are Comments from the public? No one. Do you have anything? Zoom comments?
No one has raised their hand at this time, but you might want to give them just
A moment?
hair.
Okay.
So we're looking for anyone that wants to raise their hand on Zoom to comment.
That's it. So I'm going to close the public comment section, and so what I'd like to do at this moment, I would like to take the prerogative, and if it's not supported, you know, it certainly is the pleasure of this council. I am very supportive of appointing Bob Felder from our Planning Commission. He was my appointment to the Planning Commission. As he said, he's been on this 13 years. He's been very involved in the city of Sonoma, and one of the things he brings to us is expertise. We're going into the general plan. We're doing a lot of things that are very complex, and we need somebody who can do that, hitting the ground running. And I'm just really excited to say this. I've worked with him. I've seen him chair the Planning Commission, and I think it's very important that we do have someone of his expertise, of his level of management style and running meetings. This is very difficult for us to do this, and so I just wanted to nominate Bob Felder for the City Council.
I would like to second that nomination. I served with Bob Felder on the Planning Commission for many years. He predated me. He actually retired from the Planning Commission right before this council changed the appointment process. And one of the reasons why I was so supportive of the council changing that appointment process was because I thought Bob Felder should continue on the Planning Commission. I saw, as a design review commissioner and serving with him, he was always very fair. He did all his research on every project. He really understood the issues, and he treated everybody with respect. And I think the commission and the public always really respected him. He had a lot of gravitas as a planning commissioner. He has already stated earlier this year when I was on the Planning Commission, when he passed the baton to current chair Ron Wellender, that he would be retiring from public service at the end of 2022 when his term that Vice Mayor Agrimonti appointed him to ends, and that is coterminous with former Mayor Harvey's term. And so obviously we miss Mayor Harvey, and it's tough to replace him. And then with the news today from Councilwoman Harrington, we are in a very unique period of time with our council, and I think the kind of stability and experience and knowledge that Bob Felder would bring would be a very important addition to this council at this very unique and critical time. As he said himself, he's been on the Planning Commission for over 12 years. I view the Planning Commission, or at least it appears to be sort of like the Fresno Grizzlies. It's sort of like the farm team for the City Council this year. And I think he is a, you know, quite frankly, anyone on that Planning Commission would be great up here. It's a good Planning Commission. It's a testament to the City Council that appointed them over the last few years. I think that we also have a lot of other candidates that were part of the previous application process and spoke tonight, and as we just found out today, there will be an election, and I would encourage everyone to run for to finish Councilwoman Harrington's term. Hopefully this will be a hard-fought election. We had an election last year. Councilwoman Harrington and Councilman Diggs stepped up, and two people stepped up for 2 seats, and hopefully that doesn't happen again, ever. So I would second that nomination. I think Bob Felder has the unique experience and gravitas and that Sonoma needs right now, and I would second that nomination.
Are there any other comments?
Yeah, first I want to thank everybody who's here and has put their name forward. Obviously, as I've indicated in my resignation, there's a tremendous amount of work, and anyone who's willing to do it, thank you so much, for our town. We need you. I think there are a number of roles that need to be filled, so I could certainly support Bob Felder being the newest member of the City Council. Bob has been here so many times until the end of the meetings, watching important planning decisions. I've seen him in here countless times, really not always commenting and not the flashiest person, but always really following very closely the important issues in our town. And I've watched Bob on the Planning Commission, and he's just somebody that I feel like people feel they can bring their concerns to, and he will listen to them very carefully and treat them fairly, and he is an ear that people will feel comfortable going to. I really appreciated the comments of Mr. Sanders. Of course, his mom, Joanne, was on the city council, and he knows exactly what it takes. There will be an opening on the planning commission if Mr. Felder is appointed tonight, and I would say a night before, previously, I know you expressed interest in that, but there was no one there wasn't a real vacancy because I was reappointing my former commissioner, and so I would suggest that would be a really great spot if you were still willing to do that you would be interested in doing that. And I think that probably Ms. Lowe, with her long history of political activism, is the most adept campaigner that we have seen come before us, and I don't think she would have any problem winning an election, and it's a longer term, a 3-year term, and so I hope that she does decide to run and apply her skills there, and I would imagine that she would prevail. So, but I'm happy to support Bob Felder tonight.
Jack, do you have any thoughts?
Yes. Thank you for all of your good comments. Yeah, basically your decision and position is very clear for Robert. And I appreciate Robert. Yeah, Robert is our Sonoma's heart and soul. I appreciate. But here I would like to, because I read a newspaper representation and all different groups, and also what I appreciate today, the several candidates stand out. Using this great opportunity, concern our the city, and that is very, very valuable. And in some way, it's more important than its position, appointment, or election itself. That is our Sonoma's spirit. So maybe we just go, unanimous approve for Bob, or I will just vote no, and just encourage other people stand out, participate our wonderful democracy. And if I would vote no, and also that is a symbolic, that is my thought.
Okay, thank you so much.
Or maybe I just did unanimously approve, yeah.
I see.
But I really want to appreciate, these people's, standing out during how difficult. Yeah, that's my thought.
Well, we've all been where people have been, the ones that are sitting out in the audience. We've had some, I've been doing this for, I broke it, for 20 years. And I remember when I first ran for the city of Daly City, I was on their council for 12 years, and the head of the chamber said, "You're gonna ruin this city if you get elected." Well, God darn it, I did, and I kicked out the mayor. So it lasted for 12 years. So those things, you come in rough, and sometimes you're able to actually do things. So I think there's someone on Zoom
Correct,
who would
thank
like
you.
to call in, who is calling in to comment.
Mr. Nugent, we'll bring you in now. This is Mike Nugent, Vice Mayor and Council.
I'm sorry, you can hear me now, I assume.
We can.
Thank you. I was actually calling in to reiterate my letter that I sent to each member of the city council indicating my interest to serve. And unfortunately, I feel like I'm interrupting a coronation. And that's generally not my style. But I'd just like to reiterate that I've lived in the community for 40 years. I've served on many public boards. I was an elected official for over 17 years in healthcare in our Sonoma Valley Healthcare District, and I'm also chairman at that level. If you were to choose me to serve on your board, I would be able to hit the road running, because I do understand public office, and I understand the strictures, and I understand the regulations that you're all under. And I too appreciate very, very much the work that you do. And Amy, I'm sorry that you're leaving. It's a huge shock to me as well. but thank you for your service to the community, and I would appreciate your support if there's going to be an actual race here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you. The good news is, I've already asked Amy to be on the pool committee. You know, we're building a pool at the high school, Sonoma Splash. We certainly would welcome you. And you'd be welcome to do that.
I would be very excited to continue community service, but at a less intense level.
Oh, shoot, I was asking you to donate $50,000. Thank you, Mr. Kiff, for reminding us, telling us about the Zoom. So I believe, did I hear a second? I'm sorry, was there a second? A second. Okay, and I nominated, all right. So could I have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Ding?
No.
Councilmember Barnett?
Aye.
Councilmember Harrington?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Agrimonti?
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries 3-1.
Thank you. So I am very excited to welcome you, Bob. As I said, you know, you're the perfect person. We need someone of your expertise. And I'm very excited you'll be sitting here.
I think you
with
get
us.
sworn in now.
Yeah, Madam
Yeah, why
Mayor,
don't you come up?
the city clerk's digging up the oath, but it is, we can swear
Oh, good.
Mr. Felder in right now.
You can come up now, Bob.
I go my car and get my extension cord.
Let me look too. Sorry. Is this it here? No, that's the judges.
No, that's the judges.
I'll find it.
You have to hand over your wallet.
Here it is.
I state your name.
I, Robert Felder,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution
that I will support and defend the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully discharge
and that I will well and faithfully discharge
the duties upon which I'm about to enter.
the duties upon which I am about to enter.
Bob, are you going to make any comments?
Only that I want to thank this council for supporting this nomination and appointment. And I will do my best to serve the community of Sonoma to get us through this period of time, which is very important for our future. And just thank you very much.
I'm so glad, and I think, Mark, you said 3 is a tough one to have. We knew that, and we knew we needed somebody with experience. Everybody can gain experience as they go along. And one thing I want to assure everyone, I'm the vice mayor, and I just want the people of Sonoma, if anyone is out there listening, we are going to be okay. I assure you, We're going to be okay. A lot of good things are going to be happening. We're rolling out. We have wonderful people here. I'm sorry, Amy, to lose you, but we will be okay. I need to reassure you of that. And we have a lot of wonderful people that work here in the city of Sonoma. And I'm very committed. I think if people want to run for the office, it's a great thing to do, but you have to understand that you're going to come out wrong if you're running for the wrong reason. You have to run because you want to support the residents, the people of Sonoma. I've fought that all the time. I've said this is my mantra, city business versus people business. And I said to Mayor Harvey, you don't want to be known as the slurry seal mayor. And I'll tell you, he just outraced that quote I had for him. So I want anyone who runs for this office tonight, another place, remember that it's so important that you represent the people of Sonoma. I'm still on that. The people of Sonoma. I can't help it. It's like 12 times bigger than this city. But you have to remember you represent the people here, the businesses, and all the wonderful things that come to you from being on this city council. If you get on for any other reason, it's not going to work. So I just want to say congratulations to you, Bob. And I believe we have one more thing, 5.2, City Council reorganization, selection of new mayor and vice mayor. I'm turning this over to our city manager and city clerk.
So nominations for the office of mayor would be accepted at this point.
All right. So at that point.
Oh, if you want to take public comment, obviously need to take public comment, sorry.
Oh, public comment.
So just for the public's edification, this next item is the decision that the council makes internally, but public comment is welcome, involving the new mayor and vice mayor, thanks to Mr. Harvey's departure.
Thank you, Mr. Harvey. All right, so I am looking now, call for questions for the city council to staff. Are there any questions? None. At this point, am I supposed to receive public comment?
Public comment.
Okay, I'm going out to the public for any comments. Are there any comments? No more campaign speeches.
No,
All right.
this one will be a lot less than 3 minutes. Thank you, Mr. Ding, for reaching out in this accomplishment of getting up here. I hope now or next year or sometime soon that you have a leadership role. That's all. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing no one, I'm going to close the public comment. Is there anybody from Zoom? Nope. Okay, so so I am looking for a nomination for mayor.
Well, I will give my 2 cents, although it can be a lower weight here. I think that Madeline and Jack will be the only 2 elected people, and so they make sense to be the mayor and vice mayor if they want to do that. And that would be my suggestion. That's my comment.
And I would strongly agree with Councilwoman Harrington on that. I don't think anyone appointed to this body should serve as mayor and vice mayor, and we are left with 2 and elected officials, and I agree.
Sounds great. So, thank you, and
assuming you want to do it.
Oh God, I'm rolling, babe. And let's see. Okay, so
All right, we can't do mayor and vice mayor together? Oh, okay. I make a motion to appoint Madeline Agrimonti as the mayor and Jack Ding as the vice mayor.
Could I have a roll call? Oh,
I'll
sorry.
second that.
And me. Thank you. We have a roll call.
Councilmember Ding.
Aye.
Councilmember Barnett.
Aye.
Councilmember Harrington.
Aye.
Councilmember Felder.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Agrimonti.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank
the
you
motion
very
carries
much.
unanimously.
So now are we still moving on, Mr. City Manager?
If you're up to go to 9 o'clock, the next item shouldn't take very long. We do have some consultants on board. It's an important item. If we could try to get to it if we could.
Yes, yes. Okay, why don't we go to 5.3? Is that what you're saying?
Is it possible to take a restroom break? Brief, 5 minutes?
Yes.
2 minutes?
Thank you. Okay.
All right, so Madam Mayor, I can officially call you Madam Mayor now, okay? And council members, this is item 5.3, which would be consideration of an action to approve the refunding of previously issued tax allocation bonds. This is a fairly complex subject. We can give the whole dog and pony show. Basically, we'll have financial advisors which will tell us exactly what time it is to do a refunding that's going to save the city money.
Right.
That's the case in this instance. Sue's here to answer any questions you might have. Brian Forbath is our expert from Stradling, Yucca, Carlson, and Roth. He's available as well. I might just toss it back to you and see if you'd like a more detailed presentation or any questions.
We also have Rob Schmidt. He's our
Right, there's
the
Rob.
municipal advisor from NHA Advisors on the call as well.
Well, it's kind of interesting. Next to this item, I put complex. So now I understand that. So let's see, let's get this started then. I'm announcing the item, discussion, consideration, and possible action to approve the refinancing of previously issued tax allocation bonds with the following resolution. Should I read that, Mr. Attorney? No. Okay, thank you. So I've announced the item. I am now turning it over to our interim city manager.
And again, there's a point in time where our financial advisors will advise us it's time to do a refunding. That is this time. There is no, the cost of the refunding is done in the refinancing. There's no direct out-of-pocket cost to the city. There's an overall savings, I think, on the staff report of 2.3 million. Net present value of that is
901,000.
901,000.
And that's
So
for the city, yeah.
it's a good time to do this. If you approve this tonight, it goes next to the county agency, which approves these next week on June 30th.
Yeah.
So are there any questions from the city council? I'm sorry, am I interrupting you?
I have a question, but if it takes a long time to respond to it, it's for my own interest, which is since we aren't the successor agency, I guess my question is, since we're not the successor agency and somebody else is, this is still the responsibility of the city and not the successor agency? Just curious about that.
Yes, because you're talking about how the successor agency has gone to the county part
Right,
of it.
yeah.
Yes. And I don't know the answer to that question. Maybe our.
So we were the redevelopment, and then
Yeah,
at the end
possibly
we.
Brian could answer that question.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
this is Brian Farbath from Stradling, Yacht Crossing Route. The city council is the successor agency to the former redevelopment agency. And so the approval of this tonight then moves this on to the county oversight board, which needs to approve the resolution. And then the approval of that resolution is then subject to the Department of Finance review.
Oh, I guess we are not the successor agency on housing?
We've conveyed all of our housing assets to the county housing authority, so we don't have any assets over which we are.
I see. So I just remember when we were doing housing, they were saying we were not the successor agency, that we had an option to be the successor agency for housing, and we elected not to at that time, and the county took that over. But that is only with regard to housing and not the rest. Okay.
It was our individual oversight board that was combined and consolidated with a county-wide oversight board, which you may be confusing with the successor agency.
I was. Thank you.
Anyone else have a question? Jack? Bob? None? Okay. Going to public right now. Is there anyone here for public comment? Seeing none? Or anyone from public comment for Zoom? Seeing no one. So are there any questions that the staff would like to answer that you've heard out there? Okay. May I ask a stupid question? Okay. I've been to college. I know a few things. Do we ever get any money for this? Is our money out there anywhere? Is our money out there anywhere? Or is it just like smoke and mirrors?
Well, since redevelopment went away,
Right.
the money went away, except for a small amount that we do get to be able to administer the remaining successor agency program.
And
Are
then
you talking
some
about the
comes in.
$8 million?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry.
The 8 million, I guess.
In the refunding, you mean?
I don't know. I'd just like to see a bag man for money.
So there is Are you talking about the 8 million that's with the trustee?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that would actually be used to buy down the bonds, the
Okay.
principal of the bonds, so.
All right, you know, I wanted to let everyone know, with the dissolution of that, we would get $1 million for housing. That's what it would have been. Now it's gone, and we have nowhere to make that up. Now we're so excited about the $150,000 that we have in the Housing Trust Fund. It's sad. It's sad. Okay, that's enough, Madeline. And so I already asked for public comments. Nothing for Zoom. Nothing. And staff, there is no answers. Oh, sorry again. Staff response to questions, nothing. So, council discussion for input and further direction.
Motion to approve the refinancing of previously issued tax allocation bonds, and adopt this resolution of the successor agency.
And I'll second that. I mean, anything, obviously, I just want to thank staff and our financial advisors. Anything that saves the city $2.34 million through 2036, I think is a good decision. And so I think this is a no-brainer. So I will second that.
Okay, well, thank you. Could you take a roll call for us, please? Thank you.
Councilmember Ding.
Aye.
Councilmember Barnett.
Aye.
Councilmember Harrington.
Aye.
Councilmember Felder.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Agrimonti.
Aye.
Mayor Agrimonti. Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. Now, should I do a drum roll?
I actually think
5.4.
this neighborhood prefers the sound of cars doing donuts. Is that right, guys?
I got a greatest hits for everybody.
5.4, discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding the Casa Grande parking lot off of First Street East. Our city manager.
Before we do that, Mayor Agrimonti, I have to recuse from this item because I live within 500
that's
feet
right.
of the
I'm sorry.
parking lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our city manager.
I know, I'm sorry to look surprised. I know it's after 9. Is this something you wanted to take up?
Well, I think
Rather
we
than-
might even get death threats if we don't take it on.
Okay. Okay.
We'll be fine. It won't take much of your time. We like to wrap it up fast.
I appreciate you checking in on the 9 o'clock
Okay.
hour, and yeah, we can.
Thank
finish it.
you.
All right, so, Madam Mayor and council members, this item comes to you because you requested it on your quarterly agenda process last time. And basically, the question for you at the time, the question you asked at the time was regarding the Casa Grande lot. And I can show that if you'd like a graphic of it, but everybody's familiar with it. Is there an opportunity to potentially lease the lot from the state? There were discussions in that regard. I summarized what those discussions are and have been. I did reach out to state parks most recently. They're still open to a lease of the lot. I think the question is the term. They were interested in something shorter term. We were interested at the time in something longer term, but mentioned something in between, and they said that Rob said, sure, let's talk about it. So you can certainly discuss it right now. The possible direction you might give us would be to go and talk to state parks again, maybe to consider an ad hoc committee to work with that. I suggested maybe adding Mark from the chamber on that. And then some parameters, what would the length of the lease we would seek, or maybe you leave that up to the ad hoc committee. And then what are the things you'd like us to address in the short term? So I'll stop there and let you go ahead and dive into that
All
discussion.
right, thank you. Does anyone have any comments before we go out?
I guess I just have a question. So I think we talked previously about the lot being closed and a chain being put on at night. What's the current status of, maybe the neighbors know, what's the current status of what happens at night there? Is it closed or it's open? It's open. Okay, so when we talked about closing it at night previously, that never happened.
The only thing that has happened are the speed bumps.
Okay, all right. That was my question. And then, oh, so.
And no loitering sign at 10 p.m.
Mhm. And then are the donuts and all that still happening?
Yes,
Oh, okay. So the speed bumps didn't help with that?
just new tricks.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay, so Bob, do you have any, Jack, anyone question?
I'm very familiar with this. We've dealt with this issue for a long time with the Planning Commission, hoping we could get some resolution. So I'm fully in favor of pushing this thing forward to get something with the state. And whatever the term of the agreement, obviously longer is better, but I think we should get something back in place because that's been avoided. And I'm worried that the state is going to decide to close it down to the city and start charging for parking or something else, and I'd like to get something in place before that happens.
Okay.
I have another question for you guys. So if you recall, if you were there then, when the city controlled that lot, was it different than it is now? It was the same.
Same thing.
Oh, okay. And
It's a football, it's a political football that gets passed between the city and the state and the park rangers and the sheriff and the police department, and nobody wants to own the situation.
So the only
By
thing
the
I,
way, my name's AJ Ribley, I live at 335 First Street East. Hi, everybody.
AJ, if you wouldn't mind, because these are being, this is being
Sure, I'm
recorded.
happy to.
So in case something bad happens, that we'll be able to say you were here.
Yes, no, I'm here. AJ Ribley, 335 First Street East. I've been writing letters going all the way back to 2006. Chief Sackett was one of my favorite people to send letters to. Currently, it's Chief Rodriguez. I've sent many letters to many different versions of
And videos.
of City Council and video. And you know, I know that the police dispatch number is 3601, not 3602, because we call the police station, nobody's here. It's become constant. It's a constant thing.
can I just ask, what,
Go ahead.
do you guys have an idea of what would be effective to?
I mean, I could get, like, right now, I could get a post hole digger and I could get bags of concrete and I could just cordon off that, what I call the racetrack or the horseshoe. Basically, when you come in the parking lot, you wouldn't have to close it at the gate. You could still leave all the parking by the Swiss Hotel open. You could have that there. But what you have is you have a perfect racetrack. We've put in speed bumps. The speed bumps have been somewhat of a deterrent, but not much. COVID was actually the best deterrent. Sorry to say that, but very true. And I think you could actually chain that, just that slab of concrete off, you know, pavement off every night at 6, and still have parking available for people who want to go to the Swiss Hotel or go to Mary's or whatever. That would be the best solution. It's just, you get tired of calling the police. You get tired of sending videos. You get tired of, you know, saying, hey, you know, I'd really like some help. It's been 15 years. And all I say to everybody is, hey, when somebody gets hurt, somebody gets killed, I've got a file of litigation. So something, I don't like to go to that level, but I just want to make it clear to people, like, there's a history of neglect, there's a history of this public nuisance, and we just like it to stop. And that's all. And any help would be great, but the back and forth, the city, the police, the park, it's frustrating. And so I appreciate all, I mean, public service, you guys do so much for our community, and I really appreciate it, but this is a thing that's been going on for, in my opinion, far too long. So that's it. That's all I got. I appreciate it. So. Kilby's.
I don't want to follow you both.
All right, Kilby Stenkamp, 351 First Street East. I think the space is underutilized, and it could be, if we put the cost, if we secure the lease that's been going on 10 years, we put a gate, it could be a moneymaker, it could break even. So I was there Saturday, it was packed to the gills, full of people. A couple asked me, what's going on here? What's going on? I said, this is Sonoma on a Saturday. Sunday morning I woke up and we had a big gang Norteño symbol on the entrance. We painted it out immediately, had a long talk. We being me. I went to Friedman's and I got a can of spray paint so I don't have to paint anymore. I talked to Orlando, who was going to stay, but he had to leave, and he said the gang issues in Santa Rosa are trickling out to smaller communities. We're not staffed. He said it's not staffed to patrol the parking lot, and he feels that we have a problem and we need to get ahead of it now. And I have to agree with that. So it's no longer the high schoolers and the local drug dealers. It's gone to a whole new level. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Sam Taylor. I live on 2nd Street East. So I just wanted to add to my friends, we hear it over there too. And all up to Blue Wing and around, and that's a problem. But just to make sure that we all understand the depth of the situation, it's not only the Casa Grande parking lot. It's now, and well, probably pre-COVID, I would say more, but it will come back. It's further up at the end towards where the parking lot that abuts the Veterans Home from the First Street East side is. And when the Casa Grande is monitored by a patrolman or something like that, they go up there. And they go back and forth. They get chased. They come around. They zip around Blue Wing. They come zipping down 2nd Street East. So it's a bigger problem. And I'm not sure how to best deal with it, whether we deal with post hole diggers or we deal with gates or we deal with a targeted enforcement of some kind. And I know those are words that none of us likes to hear, but these kinds of things have to be thought out. And this problem has been going on for so long that we as a neighborhood really are asking the city council and city staff, through direction of council, to take a leadership position on this. And that means vis-a-vis the state and the county if that's necessary, and the police department. So thank you for your help on this, and if there's any questions, let us know.
Thank you very much. Jack, did you want to say something? Oh, I'm sorry, I'm closing any Zooms?
There's only 2 individuals, and neither one of them are raising their hands. It's Mark from the chamber and Orlando Rodriguez, the chief, so.
Well, then, I'm going to close the public hearing, Zoom and in person. So, anyone comments? Anyone have?
Just brought up a very interesting point, and I think that we should include the county in this discussion because that vets lot is not chained off or barricaded on the First Street side. So even though it is on the First Street East side, it is on the First Street West side. So you can't cut through, but that's a big lot that they could do a lot of damage to if we closed off the Casa Grande lot. So I think we got to include them because that's county property.
Yeah. Oh, Kelso's gone. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to share? None?
Could I just say quickly to...
Oh, could you stand, please?
And welcome to the council. I'd just like to address that. We did have discussions with Kathy Capriola last year, well, pre-COVID again, and there was talk about activity of barricading and fencing that parking lot at the end of First Street East. There's a mixed feeling in the neighborhood about that because, of course, it's not going to be very pretty, is it? And we are sensitive to that. But how to deal with it, we haven't had any great ideas either. So, we're looking for creativity on this as well. Thank you.
Through the mayor, it was just, my comment is really get the county involved because we want to solve that problem. We don't want to leave that as another problem for later.
So the county, that's the parks, is that what?
No, they're just saying like if you close Casa Grande, then people might go up to the vets parking lot, and I think we paid. Didn't the city of Sonoma paid $35,000 to put in a gate on one side that the police could access so that they could
Yes.
go all the way around without going through the plaza, So I know that we did that. So maybe another gate is necessary or something like that.
Yeah. Well, I don't even need to say it. You've heard me say it. I won't say it because it's an expletive, and I will not share that on the microphone. But I think the state obviously has a role in this, and we really need to do that. I don't know if this is a proper time. The city manager can share and correct me, but we would possibly need an ad hoc committee, some kind of committee, to be able to work on this and to focus on this issue. And
That would be a direction that would be helpful if you wanted to form that, you could.
We'd like to do
It sounds like the city clerk saying that Chief Rodriguez is interested in speaking on this too, from Zoom.
Great.
That's correct.
Okay.
Good evening. Sorry I had to leave the meeting. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good evening, and again, thank you. The money that was set aside to fix the vet's parking lot, that never came through. That fell through and we never did anything with it. So I don't know what happened to those funds. We tried to put a gate, put a fencing on that area, and Kathy, our old city manager, didn't approve it, and then eventually COVID hit, and nothing ever happened there.
Oh,
But everybody's correct that if we do something with the Casa Grande parking lot, everybody, then they're gonna go move up to that next lot. So we have to fix both of those problems. And I just have to take some time right now and thank Rob for actually getting 2 new park rangers who actually do go in there and they do tag people and they do kick people out of there. But it's true. They go to the high school, they come back on Second Street East, and then they're right back at it again. And with the amount of deputies that we have to respond to other things, and we can't just continue chasing them around in a big circle. So that definitely presents a lot of problems for us. And yeah, we have to come to a solution where maybe putting a gate, maybe rearranging that whole Casa Grande parking lot so it's not a racetrack might deter a lot of kids.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief.
So you're just looking for direction?
Yep, ad hoc committee, I'd really like, and I'd like to serve on it unless I have to have a bloodbath election on that, but I'd like to serve on the ad hoc committee. So. where am
I'd
I?
certainly be willing to join you if you would care to put me on it.
You have the history. Thank you, Bob. So let's see. We did everything. So you've heard.
So is the council forming an ad hoc committee? I think it should require some sort of action
Motion
by the council.
to form an ad hoc committee comprised of Mayor Agrimonti and Councilmember Felder for the purposes of working on the Casa Grande parking lot issues.
And,
I
Oh, I'm
second.
sorry. Oh, thank you.
Can I introduce a friendly amendment? Could we add Mark on it?
Do you need to add him formally?
If you add anybody besides the council members, that means the ad hoc committee, every time you meet, you have to
Oh.
agendize it, prepare a notice, send out notice to
Forget
the
it.
newspaper, open the public comment. I
We
don't
could-
think that'd be very functional.
Don't make that friendly amendment.
Certainly invite Mark.
That was very unfriendly,
Yeah,
Bob.
yeah, the city manager said you can invite him anytime you want.
And so invited to this, as you just said that, invited to this meeting would be the group that's here, because nobody's more intimate with that than them. And Before we all go to the happy hunting grounds, it would be nice if this resolved, right? So I think, roll call.
Councilmember Ding,
Aye.
Councilmember Harrington.
Aye.
Councilmember Felder,
Aye.
Mayor Agrimonti.
Aye.
Thank you, the motion carries 4-0.
Thank you so much. And I think that's the end of our evening. Is that right, Mr. Kiff?
There was one more, no?
No.
That works unless you wanted to take care of the consent calendar while the city attorney is present. Because I know he's doing some traveling tomorrow. He'll still be available.
All right. So we still have 5-5 though, right?
6. Oh, no, 5-5. I'd like to make a motion to continue 5-5 to tomorrow.
Okay?
Second?
Oh, it's new.
All in favor? Oh, I'm looking for a roll call vote. Pardon
Do we
me.
need to do a public comment on the continuing it? Yeah.
Take it, should, I have to take this out to the comment, back out for public comment?
And the issue is continuance for
Yeah.
them to comment on.
So the issue here is continuance. Anybody want to comment on that? Hearing no one, I'm bringing it back in. Is there anybody zooming? Okay, so we are now, could I have a roll call?
Councilmember Ding,
Aye.
Councilmember Barnett,
Aye.
Councilmember Harrington.
Aye.
Councilmember Felder,
Aye.
Mayor Agrimonti.
Aye,
Thank you, the motion carries unanimously.
that's cool. Oh golly, so I think that might be it. Is that right, sir?
Consent calendar.
Oh, that's stupid consent. Thank you so much, Amy.
I
Okay.
would like to say moving the consent calendar to the end was a awesome move. Great move. Much better.
Okay, I'm now at the consent calendar. All items listed on the consent calendar are considered to be routine and will be acted upon by a single motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless members of the council, staff, or public request specific items to be removed to separate action. At this time, council may decide to change the order of the agenda. Does anyone have anything?
We should rewrite that script, maybe.
Yeah.
I would like to remove 6.4. And I'm also happy to discuss that tomorrow, if that's the pleasure of the council. Are we allowed to do that? So let's remove 6.4 and hear that tomorrow.
All right, so so could I have a motion? Oh, is out to public. Could I take this out to the public? Public, you have to pay attention. Would you like to say anything? No. Okay, I'm bringing it back. Is there anyone for Zoom? No? Okay, we're back here. All right, so I think I'm looking for approval for consent agenda minus 6.4.
Motion to approve consent agenda except item 6.4.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Dean?
Aye.
Oh, I'm sorry. Councilmember Barnett?
Aye.
Councilmember Harrington?
Aye.
Councilmember Felder?
Aye.
Mayor Agrimonti?
Aye.
Thank you. Yeah, motion carries
Please,
unanimously.
God, this is it.
I'll make a motion to continue item 6.4 to tomorrow.
Second.
Public comment.
And public comment? Nobody, and we're bringing it back. Anyone on Zoom desperately needs to comment on this? Nobody? So, all right, so, roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Ding, Councilmember Barnett.
Aye.
Oh, sorry. I still skipped.
Well, he did.
I'm not permitted.
I'm sorry.
Aye.
Councilmember Barnett.
Aye.
Councilmember Harrington.
Aye.
Councilmember Felder.
Aye.
Mayor Agrimonti.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously. My apologies, Vice Mayor Dean.
So you're all done, but just for the public certification, tomorrow, the 6 o'clock here, the discussion items would be the budget again, the fee resolution, because the two of those are tied together, the discussion of your third quarter planning, which is always fun, so you can kind of dive in with things you want to add for the third quarter. And then finally, 6.4, which relates to the residency requirement for the city manager. And that's it for tomorrow, unless you do committee reports.
Thank you, everyone. So I guess
And you're adjourning till tomorrow.
I'm adjourning until tomorrow.